What's up, guys? Happy weekend, and welcome to the first of 3 consecutive live streams in a row, kicking off the weekend here with your Winged Eagle podcast for October 24th, 2020, along with full Hell in the Cell predictions for tomorrow's pay-per-view. We have got a lot of wrestling news to discuss, or wrestling results, I should say, to discuss this week, and a lot of pay-per-views and big events to preview. We're going to preview AEW Full Gear. We have Halloween Havoc coming up this coming Wednesday, and of course, we've got Hell in the Cell tomorrow, which I will offer full predictions on at the end of this podcast here. So it should be a fun, loaded episode. I apologize to the handful of you that were waiting in the chat already. I am 10 minutes late. I was supposed to come up here at the top of the hour, but it's 10 after. Just needed a few more minutes to do my hair and makeup and to collect my thoughts and get everything kind of written down because there's a lot to discuss. Now, on the menu tonight, we're going to kind of reverse things a little bit, and we're going to start with AEW because I think the news of the week is Le Dinner Debonair and how it is, of course, like everything else, has sparked a ton of debate in the wrestling community. And sometimes I just wonder if people have ever had any fun in their lives at all, you know? But I am going to look at both sides of this, and I'm actually going to agree with the people who didn't like it, and I'm going to agree with the people who did like it. So we're going to kick off with Dynamite results. We'll talk about Jericho and MJF's very first ever date. They broke out into song and dance, and it was the talk of the town on Wednesday night. I couldn't believe and had no idea what I was even watching because I was actually home to watch this stuff. And the number one contenders tournament is starting to is kicked off as well, and we've got the finals for that pretty much penciled in our heads. We have a couple of injuries on Dynamite, and Full Gear is shaping up to be a really good show. So we're going to start with that. Then we'll move into NXT. Then we'll talk about last night's SmackDown, kind of the 3 big angles that took place with Roman and Jey Uso, Sasha and Bayley, and Law and Otis. And then we'll finish things off with full predictions for tomorrow night's pay-per-view, which as of right now, there are only 5 confirmed matches for. You would think they got to offer or add a kickoff match. You think there might even be one more added to the card. I think with 3 big Hell in the Cell matches, 5 is actually enough. Maybe you could do a 6th. I don't think you need more than that. This will probably be a 3-hour pay-per-view. And maybe throw something on the kickoff just for shits and gigs that they'll probably announce tomorrow on Twitter an hour before the show, most likely. But looks like for the matches that mean anything, it's only going to be about 5. So I've got my predictions down. I feel like I got a pretty good grasp on what's going to happen. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. And don't forget, tomorrow night, immediately following Hell in the Cell, I'll be up here on YouTube to give you guys a full review and results. Let me make sure I can be heard here and do a quick sound check. Good. I didn't talk into the into empty space there. Cool. Well, I just want to say hello to those of you that are here. I want to knock out a couple of super chats first. We'll shout out the patrons, and then we'll jump into AEW Dynamite. What's up, George Morris? Appreciate the $5. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? What is new? Cobra Kai video game is coming out Tuesday for Nintendo Switch. Can't wait for Season 3. Did you see the trailer? I had no idea about a Cobra Kai video game. That's cool. I wish I played video games, but that's something that will probably sell. Cobra Kai has reached a whole new generation of people that never even had any idea about the Karate Kid or knew about the movie. And that's the cool thing about the series is I think you can follow along with it even if you didn't watch the movies. But for the people who did watch the movies, there's just an endless amount of Easter eggs and callbacks to the originals, and that's why it's such a great series for somebody like me. And yes, I saw the trailer. Looks like we're going to be seeing Chosen in Season 3 and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. 3 apparent deaths will take place in Season 3. It's going to be good. I'm ready for it. January 8th. I've got the date marked on my calendar. Devlin Husband, good to see you, man. What's up? Thanks for the 5. Hope all is well. Jim Cornette must have loved Dynamite this week. I'm pretty sure he has already talked. I think he had his podcast because I saw some links to it on Twitter, but I haven't heard a word Cornette has said about Le Dinner Debonair. I can only imagine what that nutball must be, what he must be saying. How he's probably just flipping his shit. But we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. What's going on to the rest of you? Deshaun and Stone Cold. Hey, Melissa and Andrew the villain. Sonic Plays. Adam William is here. Madeline, how are you? Real American Michael Cuomo. Nice to see you. And we've got Chris. We've got Lamb. We've got How Wheezy. What is up? Always happy to see you here as well. And hopefully this will be a really fun weekend of wrestling. And I got high hopes for not only tomorrow. I think Halloween Havoc on Wednesday is shaping up to be really good. And we're going to talk about Full Gear as well. We had Dynamite this past Wednesday that we're going to talk about here in a second, but they also filmed next week's Dynamite as well. So I'm not going to give you guys any spoilers, but there is a couple things I'm going to mention that should be discussed in terms of next week's show. So we'll get into that as well, and I'll run through the current, at least for what we have, the current Full Gear card as well. So it's going to be fun stuff. Anyway, Let me shout out the patrons, as always, the current and active patrons supporting the channel right now are Alex Dredge, Apron Bump Podcast, Alan Carter, Scotty Cura, Brandon Yelverton, Nick Musser, Michael Tong, K-Dogs Kennel, Ryan Y, Devlin Husband, the Double Z TV, Zach, John Redifer, Claudio Klabadetster, Jordan Karg, Barry MK, who's probably here as well, Daniel Rodriguez, Josiah Blevins, Mr. Steve, Scott Moss, Domanian Ewell, John Riffle, Naveed, Michael Cuomo, who I just said hello to, Keith Salyers, Nathan Walker, Blake Moran, and Alex Reynolds. Thanks, guys, as always. And if you would like to support the channel in any way, the best way to do it is to subscribe and like and share this video. But if you would like to take it another step further, head over to Patreon at Good Mic Work, and you can sign up and support the channel that way as well. That pretty much does it for the pleasantries. The news was relatively light this week, or in terms of what we usually talk about here on this podcast. I'm not going to get into every little tidbit, so I didn't really write down any news. I mean, there has been the talk coming out that WWE is being investigated as a potential COVID-19 hotspot, which is not surprising. I'm surprised it took this long for them to at least take a look at maybe their operations and make sure that they're following all the protocols and the procedures and everything, which I believe they are now. I think if they weren't, guys like Daniel Bryan, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, they wouldn't want anything to do, and Roman Reigns for that matter, with WWE. But at first, they most certainly were not. At first, it did not look like they were really taking it that seriously. They were just going with what they had to do. But now it actually seems like they give a shit about the welfare of the wrestlers and stuff, and I think they should have been investigated as a hotspot before, when they've already had like 3 outbreaks and stuff. So we've seen this happen in sports. We've seen this happen with teams. I know it happened with the Patriots and maybe Tennessee Titans in football, and there might have been some baseball teams too. So this is going to be a regular thing. If you're going to try to do sporting events, entertainments, and you're going to have people around each other, you're going to have, you know, the occasional outbreak here or there. So hopefully that won't trip up WWE any in their scheduling, and hopefully they are okay there. But that's really the only thing that I kind of had in my head that I was going to mention that was worth discussing. But we also have news, you know, in some WWE storylines, like within the storylines, and we have some injuries and stuff to talk about as well, which we'll touch on as we go through here, the results and stuff. But like I said, I got to start with Dynamite. Holy shit. Okay, so this past week's Dynamite, we're a week removed from their year anniversary show last week, which was okay, but not nothing spectacular. This was a damn good episode of Dynamite, I think, because we had a lot of tournament matches, and we had a number 1 contenders tag team main event that set up a really good match now for Full Gear that may or may not happen. And we've also got pretty much the finals of the number one title contender tournament also sort of penciled in for the show. And the implications of where that could go after that, I think, are making Full Gear really exciting. And we even have a AEW title match also announced for the show as well. And I think that Full Gear is like really shaping up to be good. And what I like about the Eddie Kingston, which we'll talk about, Eddie Kingston and Moxley program, is it reminds me a lot of Jey Uso and Roman Reigns. And we'll talk about why that is here in a little bit. But I'm going to go mostly in order of Dynamite, except for one segment. I'm going to start with what we need to start with. We need to start with Le Dinner Debonair between Chris Jericho and Maxwell Jacob Friedman. This was set up last week. It's actually been set up a few previous weeks with MJF hinting that he's looking to join a faction, looking to become part of a group of some kind. He alluded to this on TV several weeks back, and he's slowly been, interacting with Chris Jericho on TV. They're kind of frenemies, love-hate type of relationship type of thing, where they kiss each other's ass up front, talk shit about each other behind their backs, that type of thing. This has all led to MJF last week saying that he might possibly, maybe, sort of, kind of might want to potentially be a member of the Inner Circle. And Jericho and him agreed that this week they would discuss it. They would discuss it over a steak dinner. So going into Wednesday, that's what we thought we were going to get. We thought we were just going to get some funny-ass segment in a restaurant with the two of them just bantering back and forth, which actually is entertaining enough. I mean, every time these two guys are on the mic together, I laugh. They're pretty entertaining together. So as a wrestling fan, that's all I needed to see out of these guys, and that's what I was expecting. And the roller coaster of emotions that it took me on while I was watching it, I think it was the best part about it, because I'm rarely home on Wednesdays, but I've arranged to be home the next couple of Wednesdays and a few in the future here, so I can watch these shows. And me being able to watch it live, and looking at Twitter at the same time, everybody was saying the same thing. What am I watching? Am I dreaming? did the world explode? Like, what? It came out of nowhere. These two guys in the middle of this dinner. You think the segment's going to go one direction, and they just bust out into song and dance. It was one of the wackiest and most bonkers things I've ever seen, but it's why I like wrestling, because you can see shit like this, and it was so batshit out there that it was good. It wasn't even one of those it was so bad it's good segments. It was one of those it was so good it's good segments to me. I mean, I thought it was great, but at the same time, like I said, I thought it was just going to be these two guys having dinner together. Now, what originally, like when I mentioned my roller coaster of emotions, when it started, I was initially disappointed, like the first 30 seconds in, because what I see is them not going off site to a restaurant. I see them making a WWE style backstage restaurant. Every time WWE, sometimes they pretend they're somewhere else and it's just a fucking backstage with a curtain drawn or whatever. So all they did was have a blue curtain and then a little dining room table set up and a waitress and like a fake plant. And they're trying to pass this off as a restaurant. That's what I thought they were doing. I'm like, this is lame. This is what you guys did. You just set up a curtain backstage. You should actually call a restaurant and ask them if you can use their facility and pay them and, make this big elaborate scene and segment or whatever. So I was like, boy, that's kind of lazy. Boy, was I wrong. You talk about the opposite of lazy. Holy shit. So they go on to kind of exchange some lines back and forth. My favorite was when they start ordering, and I was wondering, and again, the roller coaster of emotions, I believe MJF orders first. The waitress's name is Velma or Thelma. We don't know. I think Jericho thinks it's Velma. MJF thinks it's Thelma, or vice versa, whatever. So Velma is there, and I believe MJF orders first, and he's like, I'm going to need a 20-ounce porterhouse, baked potato, and I'm going to need that well done. First of all, who orders like that? I'm going to need that. You say that to your server, they have every right to slap the shit out of you. So he says that to her, and I'm like, the first thing I think of, I'm like, well done? Damn. That's disgusting. If you're going to a nice steakhouse and you order well done, I'm blocking you. Like, that's crazy. So it's fine. It's Sizzler, but come on. This is like probably a nice restaurant, nice steakhouse here. So he orders it well done. I'm like, what the fuck? So then Jericho, it just becomes a battle of one-ups. So Jericho orders the same thing. I'm also going to need a porterhouse, 20-ounce baked potato, but I'm going to need mine medium well. Then MJF repeats it, and he wants his medium. And then Jericho repeats it, and he goes, I'm going to have mine medium rare. And then MJF goes rare, and then Jericho goes blue. And at some point, I'm waiting for one of these guys to say, Velma, bring me a live cow. But it didn't get to that. They do a funny line there. Where, what did they say? They said something about having no class or something like that, or being a jabroni or whatever. And they both say Orange Cassidy's name at the same time. That was really funny. And then, like, literally out of nowhere. So I'm watching. I'm still like, I'm laughing at some of the stuff that they're doing. I'm definitely entertained by it. There's a smile on my face. But I'm not considering this yet to be like a This Is Your Life mega type of segment where it's just so entertaining and so ridiculously fun. I'm just finding it mildly entertaining up until this point because it's Jericho and MJF. They're great together, but what they're doing at this table here is really nothing different than they've done in the ring on the mic. So I'm liking it, but I'm not like, oh, wow, this is going to be the best segment in AEW history or anything like that. And then literally out of nowhere, they break out into song. Now, this is actually a real song. I forgot the name of it. Somebody told me, but they replaced, the lyrics with like AEW wrestling storyline related lyrics. And they go through this just wonderful song and dance. They've got backup dancers. MJF has just got a phenomenal voice. Jericho, who's the rock star here. Jericho's the guy that sings regularly for a living. Looked like an amateur compared to MJF and his vocals, man. He's got some pipes, man. I mean, we think we all knew that because he's done a little bit of singing. We've seen him on TV ever since he was a kid, or seen some of the clips and stuff. So we know he sings, and we know he does shit like that, and he does have a good voice. But that was impressive as hell to me. I'm assuming this was not done live, obviously. They probably recorded this and taped it, but I felt like he was kind of outperforming Jericho, at least in the vocals department. And it was great. They some of the little lines of the lyrics that they added in pertaining to AEW and stuff was hilarious. The way they were dancing, kind of like the Rockettes with the dancers, and they were doing the back to back and side by side smile. It's been all over. I used it on the thumbnail here. It's been all over social media. I want to put that on like my bank card, and give it to people. And so when this is going on, I've got my phone in my hand and I'm like, what the hell am I watching? I glance down over to social media. I look at Twitter and everybody's like, what the hell am I watching? What WTF? What is happening? Am I alive right now? Is this a dream? It was just pure and utter surprise and enjoyment for the most part. At the time of it happening, I saw no complaints on Twitter. But you knew it was going to spark a whole bunch of debate after the fact. But while it was happening, most people were getting a kick out of it. Some people that even went on to shit on it a day later were getting a kick out of it as it was happening. And that to me is the fun. That to me is the fun of wrestling, when you can be watching something and it's going one way, and then literally like a super kick to the teeth, it hits you out of nowhere and goes in a completely different direction to where you're questioning your own reality. Every one of us were wondering if we were awake or dreaming, or, if this is some alternate parallel dimension or universe. When you can achieve that, I think that's nothing but a good thing. I found this to be hysterical. I laughed my ass off. I thought it was well done. I thought it was extremely well produced. I thought it was well performed, especially by MJF. And it was funny. And even after they were done with the whole song, they got done with the entire song, and then the curtain closes again, and then they're back at the table. And they sit down at the table, and then Velma brings them to basically completely raw steaks. And they're looking at it and like, holy shit, this is completely raw. I can't eat this or whatever. We're going to have to send these back. And then they do Velma and Thelma and call her back or whatever. And that was the end of the segment. So I took that for what it was. I watched it and I just was laughing my ass off. I thought it was great. This is what I want out of Wednesday nights. I want some truly wacky, bonkers things to happen. Sometimes when you try things, sometimes when you go really outside of the box, it works, and sometimes it doesn't. And this is one of the occasions where I think maybe something like the Stadium Stampede or something really crazy that AEW has done has been better than this, but I still found this, just the emotions that it brought out of me just to watch this, and just my eyes were just wide. I had this big giant fucking grin on my face like, what the hell am I watching? Anytime wrestling can give me a reaction like that, that's a good thing. I've been a wrestling fan longer than anybody fucking listening to me right now, I'm pretty sure. And if it doesn't offend an old school fan like me, like, I don't consider this to be anything but fun. I don't consider this to be harmful to anybody. You know what? I could not believe that I saw this from a couple of people floating around social media, that it harmed MJF's career. It helped MJF's career. He'll be remembered for this. He's not going to go downhill now and everybody's going to point to the dinner and say, oh, that was his demise. If anything, he got more people to take notice of him. If anything, he got more talk. I mean, look at the buzz it's created. A goddamn steak dinner on a wrestling show has created more conversation than any other match this week. How in the hell is that ruining anybody's career? Especially when you don't have a vast majority of the audience shitting on this. It was head-scratching a little bit, I'll admit that. I'm not a big musical fan. I am perfectly fine watching a wrestling show without a musical number. That's fine. It wasn't something that I necessarily needed. And maybe in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't even my favorite type of segment that I've ever seen. But it was still entertaining to me, and in terms of it harming anyone's career, fuck no. Jericho has come to AEW to have a good time and work with a lot of young wrestlers and give people the rub, and he's done nothing but that since he's been there. Working with Cassidy, working with the Private Party guy, working with MJF here, and all the other matches he's had with a lot of the younger talent there. Just goes to show you how much he actually really does care. He's not harming the business in any way. At least that's my opinion on it. And when you think about these segments, there are plenty of them where something is tried and it clearly just doesn't work. It's just hokey, it's silly, it's dumb, it comes off cringy or whatever. There are plenty of examples of that in AEW and WWE. But in terms of this specific thing, for the detractors here and say, oh, this is stupid, this is why AEW is dumb, or for all the people out there that just go out and repeat literally every word that comes out of Jim Cornette's mouth, and to say things like, well, if this was WWE, it would suck. No, if this was WWE and it was done right, I would like it. And I'll tell you what, speaking of if this was WWE stuff, the Les Dinner Debonair was only my second favorite kind of off-site skit or segment this week in wrestling. You know what my number one was? Last night, Law and Otis. I like that better than Les Dinner Debonair. But I'm still going to stick up for Le Dinner, because I don't think it was le bad. I thought it was le fucking hilarious. And I don't know why people take wrestling so goddamn seriously. I see people crapping on it. And what it really comes down to as well is the people that are going to criticize this segment, in large part, not all, because I had my criticisms of it too. in large part, are just going to be your anti-AEW people, the people that are so annoyed by AEW's cult-like following fans, which, in all honesty, they do have. I just don't let it get to me. I try to enjoy wrestling and try to ignore the crazy people. So those crazy people cannot be ignored by some portion of the wrestling audience. So they're taking that anger out and frustration out on the company and the fans, and then they're just turning it into every single thing AEW does sucks, when that's not the case. WWE is capable of having fun segments like this too. AEW is also capable of this, and both companies are capable of making them look stupid. And I just don't think this was a case of that. I don't think this set the business back any. This goes back so far. My God. Wrestling and music, the very first wrestling album, you know, with all of the stars having their own songs, Hillbilly Jim and Junkyard Dog, and the big, you know, they had a couple of them a couple years in a row and a couple of back-to-back wrestling albums. One was the Land of a Thousand Dances or something like that, and then the next year with If You Only Knew, Vince McMahon singing Stand Back in 1987 and dancing, fucking Girls in Cars, Honky Tonk Man performing at WrestleMania 6 with Greg the Hammer Valentine. You know, years later, you've got, you know, on the Go Home show to Survivor Series 2001, a show I was at and reviewed, by the way, so you can check it out on my channel, WCW or an ECW Alliance versus WWF, the main event. The two co-captains on the Go Home show are singing a duet with each other, singing Margaritaville by Jimmy Buffett 6 days ahead of a match that has the biggest stipulations in company history. You know, there's all sorts of examples of just fun song and dance. All the Rock's rock concerts, Biatch, you look horrible. You know what I mean? You know, that sort of stuff. So I don't see why this is any different than that, and how the haters can somehow twist this into a way that AEW is doing something that's never been done before, or is doing something that's legitimately going to harm wrestling. That's absurd. You know, and it's that type of attitude that makes me wonder what kind of miserable lives these people lead. Have you ever had any fun in your life? Do you even know what it's like to have fun? Do you even know what it's like to lighten up and just have a good time and not take anything so goddamn seriously? Try exercising. Try smoking weed. Try doing anything that will just lighten you the fuck up and stop getting so angry about something that should really be fun and bring everybody together in a really shitty year and a really kind of bad, uncertain time in wrestling with everything going on. To me, the more we can come together, the better. And with a segment like this, you know it's going to create division because, you know, people like Jim Cornette just love to stir that pot, you know, and even if they don't really truly believe it in their head, they double down on, you know, their shtick, you know, about every single thing that AEW does. Kenny Omega is a shitty wrestler. That's the type of nonsense that comes out of these people's mouths that's completely based out of crazy, irrational bias. And it's stupid. You know, we're all wrestling fans here. We should all have a good time. So, you know, in terms of the Le Dinner Debonair, I don't think it was the greatest segment in wrestling history. I think Jericho is being a little bit silly on Twitter, which I love because he's bragging about the ratings and the views that it's gotten. We got 800,000 on YouTube, and you know, we got 800,000 viewers on AEW, and we dominated the segment or the quarter hour, and I'm the ratings god and all this shit. And then fans are like, you know, commenting on it. They're all mad. Boy, it's sad to see Jericho go down this road and become this person. I'm like, he's a fucking heel and he's trolling your asses. He knows how absurd he sounds. He's digging into you because he doesn't give a fuck. He's been doing this longer than you. He can outsmart you and run circles around you mentally, and he does not get bothered by this type of stuff. He does this purely just to get a reaction, just like Jim Cornette does. You ever realize how over the top Jim Cornette is? You know, when he's just so insistent that these guys are too small and suck when they're bigger and more talented than half the people that he fucking managed in his career. You know, in terms of from an athletic standpoint, the things that he bitches about doesn't add up. He contradicts himself, you know, in his own career with the stuff he bitches about just to continue to push this, you know, particular narrative of everything AEW sucks. So it's that type of thing that's out there that can really ruin a segment like this. So I just try to judge it, you know, for what it is. And Jericho, I think, knows that it's going to create division, and he knows just by making a comment like that, it's going to get people all fired up and all riled up, and they're going to go nuts, and he's just going to sit back there and eat his popcorn. He doesn't care if you insult him. Oh, it's sad to see what Jericho's become. What? A guy who's 50 that's still extremely relevant in one wrestling company and that's doing a lot for younger talent coming up. You know, think about some of these guys that he's worked with in 10, 15 years' time. If they become big stars, they will look back to the time in their life when Jericho really helped and worked with them. MJF is a really good example of that. Maybe you can make an argument that Orange Cassidy will never, make it to championship status, but MJF I think has a chance to, and I don't see how any of this is bad. To say it harmed MJF's career is to be completely high on drugs, because there's no way this in any way this harmed MJF's career at all. If anything, it showcased how versatile of a performer he is. And if you can't just kind of take this tongue-in-cheek, if you just can't take this for what it is, just a really goofy, bonkers backstage segment in wrestling, and you try to take this simulating fighting form of entertainment that we all love so much, and you try to make it so serious, that's what ruins wrestling, not this. It's fans that are so resistant and want to do nothing but debate and be on the side that they want to be on. And it just like in this country that we're in right now, it creates so much division. It creates a wedge that really shouldn't be there at all. We for the first time in 20 years, we've got another wrestling company on television on a weeknight to go up against WWE. How that can be perceived as a negative thing by the wrestling audience will never make sense to me. And that's why I don't like most of the wrestling community, to be honest with you. But anyway, that's my opinion on Late Dinner Debonair. I thought it was fantastic. I laughed my ass off. I thought it was great. Do I need to see it every week? No, because that's one thing about segments like this that are so out there and so over the top. That's something you got to do extremely rarely. You throw us a Dinner Debonair every Wednesday night, it's going to get old as shit real quick. So when you bust out something like this, don't overdo it. And that's one thing we haven't seen yet from AEW. We don't know if they're capable, because there's a couple things that they overdo. We'll talk about that here in a minute with Tully Blanchard coming out in the mask, or wearing the mask. I'm like, what is this, overly dramatic, run-ins when it just turns out to be somebody lame? Why does, when Cody run in, do the lights have to go out? Why does Tully, who is the manager of FTR, have to come in with a mask and conceal his identity to hit someone with a chair, when he could have just had it without the mask and it still would have made perfect sense? So, there is a chance that maybe with the freedom that they allow some of the wrestlers, maybe Jericho can maybe run a little bit too hard with something, because this seems like this was all him. This whole idea just seemed very Jericho-ish to me, something that he'd come up with in his warped fucking brain. So as long as this isn't something that we see all the time, and we see nothing like this again, and we can always look back and say, remember the time that Jericho and MJF broke out into song and dance on Dynamite, that would be that would be more of a positive thing. So just don't do this next week. Don't do it for another year. I don't want to see another musical and song and dance until at least October 2021. And as long as that's the case, I will always look back on this fondly, and I think fans should lighten the fuck up. So anyway, wanted to open with that because it was just bonkers, and I didn't expect to see it, and something like that took me so off guard. That it's been great. It's been a great week thinking about this stuff. I was ready to talk about it this week too, so I figured we had to open up with that. Yeah, Ratnick, I've said the very same thing about Cornette. He's very, very anti-Trump, but he's so ridiculously similar that he's, just he incites division, in wrestling fans. I'm like, we do not need that from him, Cornette. We got our own problems, wrestling fans. We're dealing in the COVID era right now. And things are just, effed up. If anything, we should try to enjoy wrestling together. Social media is such a big part of wrestling now, YouTube and live streams and things like that. It's such a big community to consistently and constantly try to create as much turmoil between all of us as possible. To me, just seems like, if anything, that harms wrestling more than any other segment you will ever see on your mud show. AEW is fucking ridiculous. Anyway, we're going to stick on the subject of Dynamite because we had the tournament that was kicked off. I believe all four first round matches took place here. The first one being Wardlow taking on Jungle Boy. Now, Wardlow, I love. We've commented on him before. He's only had a couple of matches. He had that great debut when he lost to Cody. That was in the cage. That was when I think a lot of us were like, this guy's pretty damn good. And he was impressive here, too, against Jungle Boy. They put him in there against somebody smaller so he can, kind of utilize his power. And I was, when I look at him, and I've said this, too, back when he first showed up and started backing up The Miz, is I talked about, kind of his similar look a little bit to Roman Reigns. The two could maybe pass as brothers, although I think Roman's a bit taller. But Wardlow has that... He has that Vince McMahon look. He has that WWE look, and it made me wonder, has WWE ever had their hands on him? Was he ever in the PC? where did he come from? I don't know if he ever passed through there, or maybe, he was signed to a developmental and he left, or whatever. I don't know how this guy, just based on what WWE likes, I just think Vince McMahon looking at him would get him a job. Who cares if he can work? We'll get him in the PC and we'll turn him into a good worker or something. But he can. Not only is he's big, he's powerful, he's got a good look, and he's really damn good, and he moves around well for a bigger, beefier guy. I don't know what he is, 250, 260, but he's a beast. And he made pretty easy work at Jungle Boy, although Jungle did put up a valiant effort. I think Jungle Boy will taste gold one day down the road, but he's not there yet. There's too many people, I think, on the roster ahead of him, in line in terms of having any sort of singles gold in the company. But he'll get there, and they're going to build off him for a while. But this needed to be, I think, a big win for Wardlow, and it was. Put Jungle Boy down rather quickly and advanced into the tournament. I really liked actually, let's skip around here because I want to talk about another match in the tournament as well. It was supposed to be Kenny Omega taking on Joey Janela, but Joey Janela was at that collective show, or a big part of that, a couple of weeks ago. He was exposed to somebody who tested positive for COVID-19, so he withdrew from the match, and they replaced him in the tournament with Sonny Kiss. And that's not going to be the only replacement in this tournament, which is a little bit sad, and I'll get into something about next week here in a second. But the Omega match I thought was interesting because we've got Kenny Omega and Hangman on opposite sides of the bracket. So when you look at that before any match starts, based on everything that's been going on with Omega and Hangman, they've lost the titles. Omega's been, kind of crapping on Hangman a little bit on commentary and in various interviews, and really not acknowledging much about his tag team past with him, kind of putting down tag team wrestling and kind of, turning into kind of a schmucky little heel, which is great. And they've made a lot of references and to him potentially going back to the cleaner gimmick and everything. So here in this match, instead of Janela, it's Sonny Kiss. Sonny comes out to the ring first, and then Omega, I believe Sonny came out first. Omega makes his big grand entrance. He's got this brand new entrance that is, again, much like the Jericho MJF dinner. There was a couple things I'm like, what are they doing? It was having Justin Roberts to run through his list of accolades was great. All of the Tron footage of Japan and how fluent he is in Japanese. And then on, they've got the two tunnels, kind of like TNA used to have on AEW. And in one tunnel, out come two scantily clad women with brooms, and they're kind of just dancing around with brooms, kind of alluding to the cleaner. And then in the other tunnel, Kenny is behind, some sort of a covering there, and you kind of see his silhouette, and then it rips apart, and he comes through and he starts walking. He's got this new music and whole new kind of weird entrance here. He's not gone fully back to the cleaner yet. He's not being called the cleaner. He's not out there in the cleaner garb. He just came out there in his tights, but it does look like he's, as Jim Ross said during the entrance, he's, maybe reinventing himself again. And I love this because when AEW first started a year ago, Omega, we all thought was going to kind of be the cornerstone, kind of the crown jewel. And instead, Hangman got that initial title shot against Chris Jericho. And then after that, they put Kenny and Hangman together. And that ran a long time. That ran like 8 or 9 months in the two of them. And aside from the little feud that Omega had last year with Moxley, that wasn't even for the title, but was damn good and damn brutal. He's been pretty much tied up in tag teams and hasn't had any really significant singles matches. Well, now he's in this tournament. Winner gets a title shot. And he's set up in a really, really good position to potentially win this, either him or Hangman Page. And the match here with Sonny Kiss, and I hope this would have been the same with Joey Janela had he been able to make the match. It was a squash. Beat Sonny Kiss in a matter of seconds. One-winged angeled him, I think, less than 30 seconds maybe. Just put him down. Had this disdain, kind of blank look on his face when he was pinning Sonny. And I loved that. And if he would have worked with Janela, I kind of hope I'm hoping that was the plan either way there. Because as we'll see later on, Hangman would have a little bit more difficult of a time getting through his first round opponent. So Omega, now, what do you guys think? If he does go on to win this tournament, that means we're going to get another Omega feud with Moxley, assuming Moxley gets past Kingston, which I'm sure he will. And what I've been saying the past couple of weeks is when the tournament was first announced and we first saw the brackets and we saw where Kenny and Hangman was, I actually picked Hangman Page. Kenny, the way everything's going on TV right now, starting to look like it makes more sense, but we already saw Omega and Page. We haven't really seen Page and Mox. And if Page comes out of this tournament with a win and gets another shot a year after his previous shot for the inaugural title, I think could give us a fresh match there and a fresh program, a 2 pay-per-view feud or whatever between Mox and Page, instead of going into Kenny and Mox again. So I think what I would do is, if you're going to put the title on Omega, maybe have Hangman win at first, maybe beat Mox or something, and then Kenny beats him. Otherwise, you're going right back to Kenny and Moxley again, which is not bad, but we have already seen it. So what would you guys like to see? Would you rather see Omega win the tournament and feud with Mox again, or would you rather see something different? And I'll give you my thoughts on that in just a second. We also had a couple of more. The other 2 first-round tournament matches took place. First one was between the 2 brothers, Penta and Rey Fenix, which was a fantastic match. My God. But unfortunately, it was the first of what would be 2 and then 3 on the tapings. 2 very scary injuries. Phoenix, during the match, I don't know, maybe midway through, maybe a little bit prior to that, got knocked pretty loopy, and referee was talking to him a little bit. Penta even seemed like he was being very careful with him, even gave him a really, I don't know, it was a very soft either hip toss or DDT or something like that. And you could tell that he wasn't right, but he got his bearings straight. You know, after a while, he was able to kind of regroup and come back and, you know, hit some pretty amazing moves and finish the match. He was just doing top rope stuff. He did, oh man, what's the freaking move called? I forgot what the hell it was. But anyway, he was doing things that somebody with maybe a concussion or has been knocked out shouldn't be doing, and he really got himself together. Maybe it was the Poison Rana that he did from the top rope. Can't remember what it was, but ridiculous move that, you know, after he had already kind of gotten injured like that, you're wondering how the hell he's able to perform. And that made you wonder, because they were supposed to tape the next week's Dynamite the very next night. So if Rey Fenix was in fact hurt, then what's gonna happen with him going forward in the tournament? Phoenix is able to finish the match. He beats Penta in just a phenomenal contest. I believe there was even the kind of the show of respect there at the end, even though Penta was very frustrated, but that was good stuff. Rey Fenix, I mean, in terms of being the best high flyer in the business right now, I'd vote him yes. Just ridiculous. And the fact that he was able to win there as soon as the 3 count hit, and as soon as he won, my very first thought was, holy shit, next week on Dynamite, Kenny Omega, Rey Fenix. Wow. I am so excited for that, but it's not going to happen because Rey Fenix is out. I know it's a spoiler. I don't mean to spoil anything for you guys, but you're going to find out anyway. He was injured. I think it was a concussion or maybe something head-related. And since the match, the next round match with Omega was the very next night, they replaced him with Penta. So the match we're going to see on Dynamite this week in the tournament semifinal was Omega versus Penta. I won't tell you who wins there, but that's it. That is what you're going to see. So that sucks. This tournament, right off the bat, 2 first-round opponents are knocked out. You know, Joey Janela with COVID, and then Phoenix wins, and then he's going to be unable to compete in the next round. So that's a bummer. I still think Penta and Omega will be damn good, but I was really looking forward to Phoenix. Like, that was literally my first thing. I was rooting for him throughout the whole match as well, because I just wanted to see that match next week on Dynamite going head-to-head with Halloween Havoc. They really need to stack the card. There was some really good wrestling, and you don't get any better than that. So I'm bummed out as hell that we're not going to see that match this Wednesday, but best of luck and well wishes to Rey Fenix. Hopefully he's okay, and hopefully this is more a precautionary measure keeping him out than anything else, and he'll be back in no time. And then after that, we had Hangman Page having his first-round match, also taking on Colt Cabana. This was a really good match, actually. I enjoyed the work between these two. And Hangman, I like the story that was told with Omega taking 5 seconds to beat Sonny Kiss, and Hangman taking a little bit longer to get Colt Cabana out of his way. Eventually wins with the buckshot lariat, but I like that. I like the story that's being told there. I don't think Omega next week on Dynamite is going to be able to beat Penta in a squash or anything, but I kind of hope that he has an easier path to the finals than Hangman does, because I think that tells the better story, as if you don't need really a better one with those two guys anyway. And next week it's going to be Hangman and Wardlow, and Penta and Omega. Winners face in the finals at Full Gear. But it's a shame that we're not going to get Rey and Omega. But you know what AEW tends to do, and what I think they'll do? When Rey is better, maybe after Full Gear, they'll just do Rey and Omega on TV. On Dynamite. I mean, it won't be a tournament match, but it'll be, kind of a match they owe us type of thing. I think we're still going to get it. It's just not going to be for a tournament or anything. Still be a good match. Oh, man, probably my favorite person, one of my favorite people in AEW right now, Britt Baker. She's back in the ring this week taking on Kylan King. She beats her pretty easily with the lockjaw. They let the youngster there get a little bit of offense on Britt, which I liked. And I am just fully in love with Britt Baker lately with all the stuff that she's been doing with Tony Schiavone on TV. It's some of the best chemistry in wrestling right now. I love the two of them together. I think Tony even called her a bitch on commentary, which was really funny because she's going to have something to say about that next time they come face to face, which I'm sure will be next Wednesday. And as far as I know, and you guys help me here because I haven't seen anything for Full Gear, they don't have an opponent yet for Hikaru Shida. Is that right? If I'm AEW, I'm putting the belt on Britt Baker right now. She's really the only thing you have in your women's division. And she's not going to, I mean, she's more over right now than she's really ever been. And this might be one of those strike while the iron's hot type of things, because in terms of the women's division, you got nothing else going on. I loved Riho. I love Hikaru Shida. But as champion, neither one of them have had any sort of story. It's kind of just like random opponents, random pay-per-view matches. Shida is probably going to be heading for another showdown, I think maybe with Nyla Rose, it looks like, but we've seen all of that, and none of that is really that compelling, and there's no real storylines there, and there's no character, even with Nyla Rose being with Vicky Guerrero, that hasn't done much with her, with her status or her character or us getting to know her better at all. Where with Britt Baker, we're seeing this completely different side. A year ago, she was a babyface, and then she kind of had the attitude change. And then when she got injured, I never want to see anybody injured, but her getting injured was one of the best things for her because it really highlighted how entertaining she was, the hilarious segments at the dentist office, and her, being in the wheelchair there in the little pulley system with the notes to Tony Schiavone, and then the backstage stuff. And then last week they were at the spa, and how good she's getting, in front of the camera, how witty she can be, and how funny her comedic timing is. And she actually is somebody that I'm entertained by when I see. She has storyline stuff happening, or she has things happening with Schiavone, and she treats poor Reba like shit. And there's a lot going on there with her. She's the most, kind of well-rounded women's wrestler they have because she has a character, she has a personality, she's good in the ring, and she's a great heel. She's a fantastic heel. And Hikaru Shida is a babyface. I would just book this match right now and put the belt on Baker right now. There's no, sometimes in certain situations, they should wait on that. Don't pull the trigger yet. Give that some time. Not here. The women's division needs something. The women's division needs a centerpiece, somebody to be highlighted every week, and somebody who can be in the ring having entertaining segments, whether they're a match or an interview. Where Hikaru Shida and Riho really didn't give you that, even though both were terrific workers. So that's what I'm doing if I'm AEW. So I don't know if on Dynamite they make this match or if it's still a ways off. Maybe Hikaru Shida's got to work with Nyla Rose first, and then Britt is maybe down the line. But if I'm looking at my women's division, it has not improved that much in this past year. It's been one of their weaker points, and Britt Baker is one of your stronger points of your show. Plus, she's a woman in the women's division. That's who you should go with. That's my opinion. So, agree? Yes or no? Yes or no? I think putting the belt on Britt Baker and letting her do her Britt Baker thing can only help the women's division almost without even having to have any more matches. Just the fact that she's out there as a personality, as a character, that can do entertaining spots and cut good promos and, just be entertaining in general is what you should do, to draw some focus to your women's division, because Hikaru Shida doesn't really draw. Yeah, she's great and everything, but she doesn't put eyeballs on anything. Io Shirai's better over on the other brand in NXT, where Britt Baker, I think, is just a better, well-rounded, all-around character, especially as a heel. And do it now before, fans start getting tired of her too. So she's over, so put the belt on her. That's my opinion. I want to talk about the main event as well, because that was a bit scary. So this is a tag team 4-way match. This is another number one contenders match. Normally, I don't like number one contenders being determined this way because we see it all the time in AEW and NXT and WWE in general. It seems like these days this is the only way to determine a number one contender. There's no storylines, there's no build. It's just a stupid multi-person match, winner gets a title shot type of shit. I don't like that. But if you want to have the Bucks and FTR at Full Gear, this is the type of match you have to do, because you can't go by rankings. If you do that, it won't be the Bucks taking on FTR. So if you want to get this match done at Full Gear, you're going to have to do some sort of a match or some sort of a number one contenders deal to get to that, which they did. So what was scary about this is that during the match, the Dark Order is one of the Alex Reynolds and John Silver are one of the teams in this. And along with the Young Bucks, Private Party, who the hell else was it? I didn't even write it down. But anyway, poor Alex Reynolds in the middle of the match, kind of near the end, he just gets knocked out. And I was watching this live, didn't even notice it. I mean, I wasn't 100% paying attention or anything, but I cannot believe that I did not notice this dead, lifeless body in the middle of the ring with 7 guys fighting around him. It was really dangerous. I think John Silver realized that something was wrong with him, even drug him over to the corner and like tagged him. But there was way too much going on there in the ring with this guy prone in this position, motionless, not moving at all. And that referee, you know, I understand there's like moving parts. You got 8 guys in there doing shit and people on the outside of the ring as well. I know that it's hard to keep track and everything, but this guy's like literally in the middle of the ring. He's laying diagonally in the middle of the ring and he's not moving. Look at him, look down. You can tell this in like seconds. So, you know, if the referee didn't see it, you know, I didn't see it either. So, and a lot of other fans, I was seeing a lot of people say that on social media that they missed the injury somehow. But then when you go back and watch it, you wonder how you did miss it. But anyway, luckily it seems like he's going to be all right. But that's kind of another type of thing. We saw the Rey Fenix stuff earlier on in the show, coming off the heels of what happened with Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara a few weeks back when Matt got knocked loopy, and AEW kind of got criticized for their handling of that. And here they let Phoenix finish the match when they maybe shouldn't have. And then here again, you got Alex Reynolds in this ring and all this stuff happening around him. He's very, very lucky he didn't get further injured here. Hopefully he's all right. Apparently he is. And that was just a super scary moment. Even though the match was good, you know, the match was entertaining and there was a lot going on. All of these like 4-way, 8-man, 10-man matches that AEW has, sometimes they tend to be really, really great, and then sometimes they tend to be extremely overbooked. Luckily, this one was pretty good, I think. In the end, the Young Bucks did win, which is what we expected, because if they're setting up for Bucks and FTR at Full Gear, somebody even put this to me on social media on Wednesday, do I think that they could main event? And I do actually think that they can main event, because when you look at Full Gear, as I'm going to talk about here in a minute, with Moxley and Eddie Kingston, you kind of know who's going to come out in that. So you could probably get away with not putting the title in the main event. Oh, good mic work. It's the title. You have to put it in the main event. Says who? Says fucking who? What if this company wants to really showcase the tag team division? That's what FTR is there to do. FTR left WWE because they don't give a shit about tag team wrestling. They don't take it seriously, despite having 3 sets of tag team titles in that stupid company. Here you have a company that puts the tag team titles at the forefront. They have a lot of teams. They have like a 1980s WWE amount of tag teams. Some like the Butcher and the Blade, who would be the equivalent of the Bolsheviks. They're probably never going to win the championship, but they're there. And they're a team, and they're in matches all the time. So I kind of like the parallels there. I see similarities in the division that AEW has to the division that WWE had back in the day with the Hearts and the Bulldogs and the Bees and the Islanders and Demolition and Bolsheviks and Conquistadors and Young Stallions. They had a ton, Can-Ams, Morocco and Ace. They had so many just teams around that time. It made tag team wrestling really fun. So if AEW wants to say, hey, guess what, wrestling world, we're the company that treats tag team titles like a very, very big deal, and we're going to put it in the main event of our pay-per-view. WWE's done that before too. Well, they might not have. Didn't Usos and New Day main event? They may not have. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But I don't think it would be that big of a deal to put this match in the main event based on how epic it is. We've been waiting for the showdown for a long time, Bucks and FTR, for the championships, and having this be in the main event, a match that you really truly don't know who's going to win. I think this is the type of pay-per-view they could get away with that, because based on the strength of Mox's opponent, Eddie Kingston. But anyway, it still might not happen, because after the match, after the Bucks won, FTR, they came out with like a cooler of beer. Bucks didn't want any of it, and that's when they did the stupid masked man thing, where a guy in a mask comes around, he's walking all squirrely and everything, so you know it's not like Shawn Spears, or you know it's not another wrestler on the roster. You could almost tell right away it was Tully, but he's all hidden, you know, and then he reveals himself to be Tully, and it's like, that's so dumb. Why do they even do that? You know, he's the manager of FTR. It's not a surprise to see him out there, and that's one thing I think AEW does poorly, is they make things a little bit too dramatic. And I thought, you know, like with the Dark Order's debut, when the lights went out and they came up and we had no idea who they fucking were. They did the same thing with Cody Rhodes, you know, when the lights went out and they came up and it was like Cody. I'm like, he was on TV last week. It's not like he's returning after 9 months off. He was there last week, and you have the lights go out and he's returning like he's the Undertaker, coming back after the American Badass gimmick. It's ridiculous. So this is something, it was just stupid the way he did it. They wind up hitting spike top pile driver onto the Bucks, and I think it's Matt's foot they put into the chair and stomp the chair. So they've kind of like injured one of the Young Bucks now, right ahead of their match that's coming up on November 7th. So I don't know what this means now. There's still enough time here on TV where, you know, the Bucks can still make the match. But what's weird about that is it feels like the Bucks, when I was watching this whole segment, I'm like, weren't the Bucks heel? Didn't they turn heel by super kicking referees and, you know, and officials and things like that and paying all these fines, and they're being real douchey in interviews now, and they're just they're coming across as arrogant and things like that. And it seems like they're kind of going in this heel direction, which I like. But now maybe if you're putting them in a showdown with FTR, AEW feels like you need to have one team be the babyface here. So I'm curious if they went through with this injury angle because they might change the match and not do FTR and Young Bucks and save it for a later date, or if this is going to be a way to play into the storyline. The Bucks are not going to be 100%, because if I'm not predicting this for a couple of more weeks, but right now I think I'm still keeping the titles on FTR. I'm not having the Bucks beat them here. So if the Bucks go in and one guy's got one bad wheel, you know, that offers FTR an advantage, could have them capitalize, beat the Bucks, and the Bucks can still get a shot down the line, and maybe FTR continues to roll, because that's what I do with them. You know, they just kind of won the titles here recently, so I would keep the belts on them and keep them undefeated for as long as possible, because the longer they're undefeated, the more they're going to think their shit doesn't stink, and the more it's going to be awesome. The more awesome it's going to be when they finally do drop a match, which eventually could be to the Bucks for the titles, maybe at the beginning of the year or something like that. That's what I would do. If I'm putting the belts on the Bucks, I'm doing it in 2021, and I'm letting FTR run with it here. So maybe they're setting up for the Bucks not to be 100%, allowing FTR to get the win at Full Gear, or they did an injury angle to completely take the Bucks out of the match. I don't know. But based on how many replacements and substitutions we've had lately in AEW, if I could do this match, I would do it if I were them. Bucks and FTR, because it's going to be great. I want to see it, and I definitely think it's main event worthy as well. But if it's not main event worthy, here's what is. Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston, that was also set up here with a couple of video package and promos, which is pretty good. They did kind of a video vignette promo thing with Moxley, where he's talking about Eddie Kingston, and he's saying, you know, because Eddie, you know, was saying, I didn't get eliminated in the Battle Royal, and I never quit against Jon Moxley. And Moxley's like, yeah, the reason you didn't quit is because you were unconscious blowing snot bubbles. I laughed my ass off at that. He said he used to like Eddie. They were friends, and he always respected Eddie, but he's embarrassed of what Eddie's become and the person that Eddie has turned into. Eddie would then cut a promo later, another great promo from this guy, which is great. He's the best talker in AEW. Maybe him and MJF are 1 and 1A. And he says too, he goes, you don't think, he says everything that Moxley said was true. He says he knows who he's turned into, and he doesn't like it. He hates who he's become. He can't look himself in the mirror, but he had to do it. He had to go to this dark place in order to succeed, and Moxley's going to have to go to a dark place if he expects to get him to say, I quit. So what's cool here is I draw some parallels between this match and the Jey Uso and Roman Reigns match, because both of these I quit matches coming up here on pay-per-view for each company, to me anyway, are extremely predictable outcomes. Roman ain't dropping the title, neither is Moxley. Not to these guys. But the storyline and the intrigue around both of those matches, I think, are just as good as if you wouldn't know who the hell's going to win. With Roman and Jey, as we'll talk about here in a minute, there's all sorts of implications here, including family implications, like the Usos getting excommunicated from the family, and Roman is going to force him to say, I quit, and something really dark and deep and personal is going to happen in that Hell in the Cell match. Even though you know 1,001% that Roman's walking out of there with the blue belt, you still really, really want to see the match. And that's how I feel about Eddie and Moxley. I think this is going to be a different type of match too. It's not going to be like Roman and Jey, even though I think Roman and Jey is going to be brutal and violent. This is going to be violent in like an ECW type of way, where it's going to be a lot of barbed wire and a lot of razor blades and blood and things like that, where Roman, I think, is going to be a more methodical dissection of Jey Uso, where he's really going to be vicious, probably just a lot of blunt force, blunt chair shots, things like that, where I think Eddie and Mox, much like Mox and Omega last year, might bust out a trampoline of barbed wire. You know what I mean? So I think there's going to be a lot of blood here. I think it's going to be very reminiscent of an ECW or a CZW or some sort of a death match type of shit or backyard wrestling crap. I think that's what we're going to get out of these guys. But it's going to be interesting to see, especially with Eddie saying, you're going to have to go to a dark place to get me to say I quit. It'll be interesting to watch Mox go to that dark place because I seriously doubt they're putting the belt on Eddie Kingston. That's not happening. So Mox is going to win, but it's going to be how he's going to win and how he's going to accomplish this on Eddie, which I think is going to be the good story here. And it's going to be a fun match to watch, I think. But based on the predictability of the outcome, that's why I think you can make a case, as my phone buzzes, that's why I think you can make a case for FTR and Bucks to main event. Oh, cool. Okay. Just making sure that was not an emergency. So anyway, like I said, next week we've got Wardlow taking on Hangman Page. It was going to be Phoenix and Omega. Phoenix has been replaced with Penta because Phoenix was injured in last Wednesday's match. And we also have Cody taking on Orange Cassidy in a TNT title match as well. That's going to be a lumberjack match, by the way, for this coming week. So that looks pretty good, I think, on paper, going up against Halloween Havoc. Which has got, of course, the Garganos both have title matches on that show, and we've got the spin the wheel, make the deal stuff going on. This Wednesday should be really fun. In terms of Full Gear, we've got Jon Moxley taking on Eddie Kingston for the AEW title. FTR versus Young Bucks are at least scheduled right now. We've got the tournament finals, which I think, without spoiling anything for you, I think you kind of know who it's going to be, and that is what I really think is interesting and who there could win it. And that's why I'm kind of think maybe it might be the old cowboy. Not sure yet, though. We're also going to have the winner of Cody Rhodes and Orange Cassidy for the TNT title this Wednesday take on Darby Allin. So Darby Allin gets his TNT title shot at Full Gear as well, which I think is his second or third, maybe, shot at the title. Darby, by the way, had a segment with Steve-O on Dynamite where he did a drop-in on a half pipe in a body bag. And he did it like in the spirit of Jackass. He gets in the body bag up at the top, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Darby Allin, and this is body bag drop in." And he zips it up, and he just rolls his ass. Like, why would you do that and risk breaking a wrist or something right ahead of your show or right ahead of your match? And he kind of unzips it to say, he goes, "Oh, yeah, I'm totally going to win that title." So anyway, he'll be taking on the winner of Cody and Orange. And we're also going to get Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara in an Elite Deletion match, which I'm hoping this Elite Deletion can save this program. It feels like it's been doomed right from the start. It's been filled with nothing but botches and scary situations. And I think it started with Sammy chucking the chair at Matt Hardy's head and opening him up, and he had a little bit of heat for that, for being kind of unsafe and throwing the wrong chair at Matt Hardy. Then you go to their pay-per-view match, and Matt Hardy cracks his head like a fucking jar of pickles right on the cement. Referee doesn't stop it, or they call the match over, and then they restart the match. It just looks shitty, and they just had to get to that finish where Sammy went flying off the thing. Everything they've done so far, it feels like it's been cursed. It hasn't been good when it has the potential to be good. I mean, I love Sammy Guevara, and I love Matt Hardy. This feud should be so much better than it is. Hopefully this will be the merciful ending to this thing, and whatever they do here in the Elite Deletion should be pretty damn fun. And it'll be, if it's going to be if it's going to be filmed on the compound, or maybe it's just going to be a match in the ring, and that's the name of this. If it's going to be anything wacky, I'm excited to see Sammy Guevara react to some of the shit that could be thrown at him in the match. So at least for what we have written down for Full Gear right now, I think the show's looking to be pretty good. I think it will be. And so will next week. But anyway, before we head into NXT, I'm not going to talk much about NXT, just a few things, especially the main event with Pat McAfee stuff. I want to cruise back and catch up on some super chats because I've been ignoring you guys for about 45 minutes now, and I know I got to knock some of these out. There we go. Oh, Devlin, I missed your other one from earlier. I'm going to go all the way back here to Devlin, who looks like he might already be gone. But thanks for the $5, dude. Can't stay full show today because I have schoolwork I need to finish in the next few hours. I will catch the replay of the podcast. See you, Greg. All right, Devlin, catch the replay later. Good luck on your schoolwork, and you're only allowed to get A's. If you get anything lower than an A, you are blocked. Good luck. Who was next? Barry. Oh, there you are, dude. What's up, dude? And thanks for being here. Appreciate the 2. Undertaker singing Man in Black is still funny. When the hell did he do that? When did he do that? Why can't I remember that? I have no recollection of that. Help me. Help me, y'all. Hey, Jimmy. What's up? Greetings from across the pond. Jimmy is chiming in from a far, far distance. Good evening, folks. Good evening to you, Jimmy. Although for me, it's the afternoon, and I have to head to work right after this podcast here. And we got Luigi DeRaw. Appreciate the $9.99. Yo, Greg, would you book the first WWE and AEW with full crowds? Love you, Dad. How would you book the first WWE and AEW with full crowds? There's no way to really gauge that because you don't know when that's going to happen. If I'm AEW or WWE and it's starting to become clear that things are getting better, you can see a light at the end of the tunnel, and all indications are saying, hey, in 3 months from now, they're probably going to allow fans back or something like that. If they kind of have like an idea of when that's going to be, then I think they can plan. But in terms of, storylines and stuff, it's just going to have to be whatever's going on at the time. If things start getting better and then there's like, okay, well, let's just use our big angles here. And if you have something that's really big and that's really bubbling, and then they can see, a potential target date down the road, then maybe you pump the brakes on some of your storylines to get to that point when you can have fans there. I'm like, oh, this has got to be in front of an audience. So you just do things to kind of stall it or hold it or whatever. But I would probably book, and I don't think, and again, it's not going to go like where one day it's going to be, okay, full crowds are allowed. It's going to be just a very gradual thing, like we're seeing now, 25% capacity, 50% capacity. And whenever and wherever we can ever get to full crowds again, I don't know. But I would probably book it as a pretty big deal, as kind of a celebration of us coming out on the other side of this horrible pandemic, and basically making it a celebration type of theme, like a celebration type of atmosphere. We're back together again. We're back in business. It feels good to be amongst wrestling fans. And like I said, which is why I think, the Jim Cornettes of the world and people like that are really doing wrestling a much bigger disservice than anything that they're complaining about. When they complain about, oh, the dinner debonair is ruining wrestling. No, bitch, you're ruining wrestling by making everybody so combative with each other. And I think if WWE and AEW are able to have fans in attendance again, I think both companies should treat that as a coming together, of wrestling fans, together again, something we haven't done in a long time. I think concerts are going to have a similar feel when bands are able to perform in front of their fans again. And I think a lot of those first initial gatherings are going to have a very celebratory feel to them, provided, of course, everything is safe to do so. If it's one thing to be allowed to have fans somewhere, and also being another thing whether being smart to have fans. Jericho had a concert. Jericho Fozzy performed, and they got all sorts of shit for it, a lot of COVID tests, and it wasn't a really smart idea. But aside from all of that, whenever it's safe enough to where the majority of the population agrees that it's safe enough to go out into the world and risk getting COVID to attend a concert and stuff, whenever that day comes, which I still think is 2022, 2023, when we get there, I think it should be really just treated as a celebration. And it also depends on what kind of year it is, or what time of year it is, I should say, because if it's around WrestleMania time, what if the very first live show you're able to have with a full capacity happens to be a WrestleMania? It might be kind of fun. So I guess it just depends on the situation, Luigi, is all I can say there. Hey, Mike Maxon, what's up? Thanks for the $5 Canadian. Just watched the Jericho segment. Hilarious. Yeah, how can you watch that and not think of it as anything else other than hilarious? How in the world can anybody watch that and be angry? What kind of life do you have if you can watch that and that actually pisses you off? I'd hate to live that way, man. I'm probably stressed out all the time. K-Dog's Kennel, how are you? Thank you for the $10. I know the thought of this happening is next to none, but what if Jey Uso wins the title, Royal Rumble 1999 style? Roman gets KO'd and Jimmy plays a clip of Roman saying, "I quit," like Rock did to Mankind. Maybe. I have a lot of opinions that we're going to talk about here in a minute with the Roman and Jey Uso stuff, because Roman said something very interesting on SmackDown, which I'll talk about here, and I love the segment they did with the double Uso, which, a lot of people were complaining, oh, isn't Uso supposed to be the babyface? That's kind of a heel move. No, not when you're dealing with somebody like Roman. It's not the heel move. Roman's been a dastardly, evil son of a bitch. So for those guys to jump him and take advantage of him, I think they have every right as babyfaces to do that. But what you're proposing there isn't so much of a babyface move. That's more of a cheating type of thing that a heel would do. And I don't know if I would book it like that. I'm not against them doing a crazy swerve finish with Jey Uso, but at the same time, I also want Roman to really establish himself as just an absolute animal that can be thrown into a murderous rage, but do it methodically and quietly at the same time. He's just a killer, That's what I want Roman to be. That's what I want him to be, and I think they have a good chance to do that tomorrow, based on what Roman said in his promo. Because after he was attacked by Jay, he gets on the mic and he says to both of them, he says, when I make you quit, not only are you going to lose the match, he goes, but you're going to be excommunicated from the family. Both of you, your wives, your children, you will not be members of this family anymore, which I don't know what gives Roman Reigns the authority to do that. But one little line of dialogue he said in there, which was very important. He said they will be excommunicated from the family if they don't fall in line and they don't acknowledge him as the tribal chief and they don't acknowledge him as the leader and they respect him and they do all these things that Roman is insisting that they do. So he threw that in there, which means if Jey Uso loses, when Jey Uso loses tomorrow, they're not going to be out of the family unless they don't cooperate. So what that tells me is they're setting us up for a Roman and Uso alliance. It's like they're going to be forced, not only is Jey going to give up, but they're going to be forced to join Roman. And I think maybe at first it'll be a reluctant type of thing where Roman is going to force them to do shit. He's going to force them to do things that they wouldn't normally do, force them to do really heelish stuff and to kind of adopt his philosophy and his personality. And I think at first they're going to be reluctant to it. But once, you put the tag team titles on them or something, or once they do these things and they experience some success based on what Roman is making them do, that's when I think they turn the corner and the alliance changes from being a reluctant alliance to being a mutual one. And you've got Roman and the Usos is this badass trio faction. That's what I want to see. That's where I want to see this all go in the end. And based on what Roman said last night in the promo, that's got to be what they do here, because you can't just kick somebody out of the family, So if they don't cooperate, then Roman's going to say, oh, I hired a lawyer and they signed paperwork. Your last name's no longer Uso. You are Jimmy and Jay Smith, and you live in fucking Nebraska, and you are no longer a member. That doesn't make any sense. What makes more sense is they will fall in line, as Roman put it. I think that's what he said in the promo. If you fall in line. So I expect them to fall in line. So that's what I think is going to happen there, but we'll get into more of that here in a minute when we talk about last night's SmackDown. Okay, cool. Yep, caught up there. I think that was... Oh, no, there's Mac Ram. I owe you a super chat answer as well. Thank you, dude, for the $2. The Man in Black equals 1994 Superstars CD. Oh, that was great. The 94... There's one in 93. What was the 94 one? I know 95 was around when Full Metal came out. Anyway, let's get into NXT now. I just want to talk about a couple of things, and then we'll jump into last night's SmackDown. Then we'll predict Hell in the Cell, and then I'm out of here until tomorrow night. By the way, ratings this week weren't great for either show, but it was yet another victory for AEW as they pulled in 753,000 viewers to NXT's 644. So another 100K plus victory for AEW, and of course they dominated all of those demos that are so important. Good opening match here with Kushida defeating Tommaso Ciampa and Velveteen Dream in a triple threat. I like that. Dream has got the kayfabe broken arm, the kayfabe Bob Orton arm there with the cast. I'm wondering if they'll do something like that with him and they'll keep that cast on for like a year or whatever. But still, I don't really care about Velveteen Dream right now. You know what I mean? I think we all know why. Pretty good match too with Ember Moon and Jessie Kamea, I think it was her name. And Ember gave her a pretty good amount of offense here. But what I liked the most about this match was that Ember Moon busted out a submission finish. So now she's got like 2 finishes, because the Eclipse is just spectacular. But I love that she's kind of showcasing her, mat wrestling ability and her technical wrestling ability. And she put, I don't even know what you call it. It was almost like an STF, but she had her lifted up the ground. She was off the ground. She was kind of pulling her chin back a little bit. I swear that Bull Nakano had a similar type of finish to this. And I don't even know what you call it, but it just looks very similar to like an STF type of finisher. And I loved it. And she tapped out immediately. After the match, Ember Moon was actually attacked by Dakota Kai. So it looks like they're going to move the 2 of those ladies into a match against each other at some point. But good to see Ember Moon back. Good to see her add that, to her repertoire there. I love Ember Moon, and the Eclipse is such a spectacular move. I don't want to see it every week, Because when she hits it, it's just, she's so good at it too. Props to her and everybody who takes that, because that seems like an incredibly hard move to not botch. And she hits it perfectly more often than not. So again, having something else, to attack with, I think is great. And I love that she's added a submission to her arsenal there. And I hope we see more of it. And Ember Moon and Dakota, looks like they're headed for a showdown. Maybe Ember can put Dakota down, and Dakota is somebody that I kind of had penciled into my head that would maybe go to the main roster. You can do, she's not ready, or somebody else should go first. I don't really think that way. I think of like where they are on the card and what they can offer. And Dakota's had a couple of title matches. I loved her pairing with Raquel de Gonzalez, but it almost seems like they might be moving away from that a little bit as well. But I pitched the idea of the two of them coming up in the draft, along with Candice and Johnny, and bringing Dakota and Raquel up as like a female Razor and Diesel type of stuff. But it looks like Raquel might be spending some more time in NXT, where Dakota maybe not. So maybe if she has this match here in the future with Ember Moon and gets beat, maybe they'll move her up. I don't know. We had Austin Theory taking a couple of different losses here. He lost to Bronson Reed twice, and he basically wants to keep facing him until he beats him. So we'll see if that ever happens. He even quits later on. We had a couple of quittings this week, Austin Theory and Chad Gable. Austin, after both matches, after he gets beat, I think he's in the parking garage or something, and he says that he's quitting. But I think we all know better. We'll see Theory again. The six-man match with Legado del Fantasma, Swerve, and Atlas and Adonis was pretty good, with the heels getting the win there. I loved Johnny and Candice. The Garganos were back at home. They were practicing, getting some practice reps in for the Spin the Wheel, Make a Deal segments for next week. They both have Spin the Wheel matches, title matches. Gargano is going to be challenging for the North American title against Damian Priest, and Candice is going to be taking on Io Shirai. And I mentioned last week that the fact that they're doing both of these matches again right when both of them had these title matches on the pay-per-view makes me think, if they're not going to have at least one title change here, then why the hell are they doing this again? I thought Johnny and Candice were going to be moved up to the main roster. Guess not. So if I'm putting the title on either one of these two right now, I'm putting it on Candice. I love Io Shirai. Io Shirai is great. She's just spectacular. Probably my favorite women's wrestler in NXT right now. But, Candice, I think, would do a good job with this heel persona. Her being with Johnny Gargano, I think could be a good spot for the belt to hang out. And plus, she'll drop it to a big babyface, somebody like, hopefully, Rhea Ripley down the line. They spin the wheel. I think it was Johnny. Johnny got all like this dead shit. He got the buried alive match and then the casket match, and he's like very mad. He's like, I'm alive. You can't bury me. I'm alive. Why does everybody want me dead? That was pretty funny. Candice spins the wheel for herself, and she gets a street fight. And she's like, well, if it turns out to be a street fight, that's good, because I win street fights. I always win those, because I think she won one recently on NXT. So they were kind of practicing there. Johnny seems a little bit freaked. Candice seems a little bit more at ease with it. But we'll see next week or this coming Wednesday what they do and what kind of matches they have when they spin the wheel. I feel like it's going to be reversed of what we saw in the house. Johnny kind of got the shit end of the stick in the practice run, but I think Candice will get that maybe in real time on Wednesday, and then Gargano will maybe get an easier match. My only I don't know what I'm wondering how they're going to do this, if they're going to do it backstage, if they're going to do it on the stage, and how many takes it's going to take for them to get what they want, because I'm sure they know what matches they want to have, but then you got to just spin the wheel a bunch of times until it lands where you want it to land. So they might have to take like 50 takes of this to get what they want. I seriously doubt they're just going to go with it on a whim with really not knowing and no preparation at all. That's hard to do, especially when you have TV time and stuff to worry about. So, but again, all this I'm sure is being taped, so they can figure it out. I don't know what kind of match either one of them is going to have, but I think that the only one that adds a little bit of curiosity is the Sophie's Choice, or Shotzi's Choice on the wheel, because if it lands on that, who's to say Shotzi can't be like, I'm inserting myself into Candice and Io. It's a three-way now for the title, and then she wins the title or something. Aside from that, I would love to see the what's it called, Chamber of Horrors match. I don't know how the hell they would pull that off with either of these. I'm not really interested in a coal miner's glove match or a chain match or anything else dumb on there. So I'm hoping whatever it lands on isn't too weird. And if they are, like I said, if they are going to do a title change, I think it's going to be Candice picking up the women's title, if anything. Because like I said, if they both lose, then what the hell they do all this for? Unless some of you think Johnny might win. Maybe he will, but my money's on Candace. I think Damian Priest will probably hang on to the belt a little while longer. No idea what's going on with Xia Li either. She seems very desperate in recent weeks to have a match, any match, no matter what, no matter who it's against, even if it's against an inferior opponent, a jobber. She is still considering it to be the most important match of her life. So she's up to it again this week. She wants a match really bad. Casey Catanzaro, her friend, agrees to face her. They do a little backstage interview where she thanks her for facing me. Thank you so much. This is the most important match of my career. And then she goes out to the ring and gets beat. Casey beats her. Xia gets pissed, beats the hell out of Casey Catanzaro. I was supposed to win this match. I was supposed to win. So I don't know what type of storyline they're doing here with Xia Li and why it's so important that she wins a match, any match, no matter what. Seems like somebody might have something on her. Somebody might be threatening her, blackmailing her, threatening her livelihood, something like that. But whatever's going on there, she needs to have matches and she needs to win. So we'll monitor that. You guys feel free to let me know your ideas for what the hell they're going to do there. I have no idea. After the match, though, Raquel Gonzalez hits the ring and just kills everyone. Just beats the hell out of everyone. She cuts a promo on Rhea Ripley because the two of them are headed for a showdown next week at Halloween Havoc as well. And basically says that she's going to beat her and blah, blah, blah. Can't remember if Rhea got a retort in or not on the show. But in terms of Raquel and Rhea next week, I hope Rhea wins, because I still want to see Rhea Ripley get back to the NXT title. And I think if Candace wins the title, Rhea Ripley and Raquel have their little series of matches here. Rhea comes out on top of that and then winds up facing Candace down the road and beats her for the belt. Here we are about a year ago from when she won it originally, closing out 2019 last year in that great moment on NXT. Here we are a year later. It would be cool to see Rhea Ripley get back to that title at some point before the year is over. But we'll see. I have no idea. And the main event, of course, we have to talk about because it was a tag team title match. Breezango is supposed to take on Undisputed Era. But during the show, Undisputed Era, Roderick and Bobby Fish, one at a time, get attacked by a mystery assailant. So that kind of leaves Kyle O'Reilly as the only healthy member of Undisputed Era. And he's backstage with William Regal and Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch. And he kind of agreed. He just kind of reluctantly agrees. He's like, give the match to them. And Lorcan and Burch is like, no. You beat us fair and square. One of us will be your tag team partner. You guys deserve the title shot. And he's like, no, that wouldn't be right. The right thing to do here is my team is down. Give Lorcan and Burch the title shot. And he just walks away. So William Regal's like, okay, there you go. We have the match change. It's now going to be Breezango defending against Lorcan and Burch. And this is a really good match because it led to, the big mystery finish here. There's been talk about somebody who paid Ridge Holland to attack Adam Cole at the last pay-per-view at TakeOver or whatever. And Undisputed Era is vowing to find out who it is. They even did, prior to everybody getting injured, they did a backstage interview promo with Adam Cole like on an iPad and a tripod stand, which was pretty funny. And they're vowing to find out who it was that paid off Ridge Holland to levy that attack. And we would find out who that was here in the main event. So as the match went on, we see Fandango get up to the top rope. He's about to try to deliver a move to somebody. And a masked man shows up and pushes him off the top rope. That allows Tyler Breeze to get low blowed. And Lorcan and Burch hit their finisher on Tyler and pin him to win the tag team titles. So now we've got Imperium, or we've got Burch and Lorcan, as your new tag team champions. And it kind of like they basically went heel here because they got help from the masked guy. He then jumped in the ring, and you can almost tell just by the shape of his head and his facial hair and everything that it was Pat McAfee, but I still didn't expect to see that. He pulled off the hood and the mask to reveal that it was Pat, and I guess that was the plan the whole time. I had speculated last week on the podcast that after Ridge Holland got hurt, that they were probably going to pivot and change directions and now have somebody was responsible for paying Ridge Holland to have that attack so Adam Cole could continue on his feud because Ridge Holland is now hurt and you can't do that program. So I thought they were going to replace Ridge Holland with somebody, but I bet you this was the plan the whole time, is to have McAfee join forces with Burch, Lorcan, and Ridge Holland, and that counts. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. We got War Games coming up. There you go. There's your War Games match. So it feels like that's what they were setting up for, is for McAfee to create now a little stable and go head-to-head with the Undisputed Era. With Ridge Holland injured, however, they're still a three-man team right now, so they're going to have to find another guy to bring in. But it kind of feels like they're setting up for War Games. I mean, right? And if they are, what kind of a finish do you see there? This is where McAfee's going to get his win back, I'm sure, because Adam Cole beat him in the straight-up match, which I really liked. I thought McAfee performed well. Now he's back. Now he's got some guys around him, and I feel like in a War Games setting, he could potentially now get some revenge on Undisputed Era, especially if you do something involving a turn. Like we saw Dakota Kai a couple years ago at the War Games, which was just fantastic. I think that he could do something similar with maybe Kyle O'Reilly. He had that great showing with Finn Balor. A lot of talk about Kyle O'Reilly and a potential singles run and championship gold in his future because he is so damn good. What if he turns? What if he turns on Undisputed Era in the match, putting them at a huge disadvantage against Pat McAfee and Lorcan and Birch and whoever else they have. And that's when McAfee can win and all that shit. So, and you give me some Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly matches, hell yeah, sign me up for that too. So I think if anybody is going to turn, maybe it'll be Kyle, just based on the fact that he recently got a title shot. Otherwise, you could probably make a case for Roderick or something, but I think it should be O'Reilly, if anybody is going to turn, and then maybe join up, or maybe not join, but maybe just it's more of him leaving Undisputed Era than joining anybody else. And they can do all that on the outside of the ring. He can attack somebody in the holding pen, or whatever they do, and then he can never even enter the match, which means the numbers game will catch up to the Undisputed Era, and they're going to have to surrender, I guess, in the match, is my guess. Can you win via pinfall in NXT War Games? I think you can, maybe, right? I think you can, but anyway, I think they might be gearing up for something like that, because to bring McAfee in here now again, just to get beat down again and lose again to the Undisputed Era, I think they're going to reward him with a victory here. So you have to wonder how that victory is going to happen. I feel the best way for that to happen is some sort of swerve, some sort of a turn or whatever down the line in the cage. Assuming they even do the War Games, it just feels like that's the direction they're going in. Right? Oh, Madeline, you're forgetting that's only 10 days away? I'm not forgetting it. Holy crap. You'll be the fourth guy. All right, we got Prince66 as a volunteer to be the fourth guy. It's a pretty good team there. There is no War Games this year? Are we sure? Feels like they're setting up for that. Well, maybe it's not a War Games pay-per-view. Maybe they're just going to do a War Games match. AEW and NXT with the same endings? Yeah, kind of. Well, one was a title match and one was a four-way number one contenders. But they both had masked men show up. That's true. There were definitely some parallels there. Except I think NXT's masked man was better than AEW's masked man, although not by much. Because even though it was McAfee, I couldn't tell if I was like bummed out or like disappointed or happy about it. Like, I liked McAfee. I liked the performance he put on with Adam Cole. He made a believer out of me to the point where I said to myself, I wouldn't even mind seeing more of McAfee. But having him come out here and be the one to be revealed, I was almost hoping for somebody better, I suppose. But I'm not totally against it either. McAfee impressed us once before, and we'll see whatever they're setting up here. With these two groups, we'll see where that takes us. But they have a chance to surprise us. I think. Anyway, oh yeah, Madeline, that's right. You're young. First election for you. I've done I actually mistook myself on Twitter. I thought it was my 6th. It's actually my 5th. I did not vote until 2004. But yeah, good for you, girl. Good for you. All right, let's get into SmackDown. Last night's SmackDown. I'm not going to talk about this entire show because we got the pay-per-view tomorrow. Some of these matches and segments were pointless to really discuss, but I thought there was 3 big things that took place on SmackDown that are pretty good setups for tomorrow's Hell in the Cell. And that was the Roman Reigns Jey Uso segment, the Law and Otis, which I have a ton of ideas for, and then Bayley and Sasha. And we'll touch on Shorty G as well. But I want to talk in terms of last night's SmackDown. I want to talk about the Roman Reigns stuff first. Now, I just mentioned this earlier on when I answered that super chat. The Reigns and Uso segment last night was really good. I love that Reigns was in the ring and what appeared to be Jey in his house with tribal cheese and tribal raspberries, all at the table and all this shit. And he was talking to Roman. And then he pulls down the mask, mask to reveal that it's Jimmy. And he says, you can ask my brother. Pulls down the mask. Who's standing right behind you? And then Roman knows. He turns around. He gets attacked by Jey Uso. Jey wears him out with a chair. And both Usos kind of come out and celebrate and laugh at Roman Reigns on the ramp, which I liked. And Roman, very calmly, after getting worn out with a chair like that, gets on the mic and says to them that after he makes Jey Uso quit in the Hell in the Cell, that if they don't fall in line, that's the big line there. He said, if they don't fall in line and acknowledge and respect him, they will be removed from the family, both Usos, their wives, their kids. They will never be able to be a part of this lineage and this bloodline again. You are all out of the family forever, which, again, I don't know how Roman Reigns has that type of authority, which makes me think whenever they put themselves into a situation that they can't get out of, it's going to go in the opposite direction, which is why he said, if you don't fall in line, which tells me that at Hell in the Cell, I think what Roman's going to wind up doing, he's going to make Jey Uso say, I quit. And then, like I said earlier, I think Jey and Jimmy will reluctantly comply. They will fall in line, as Roman puts it. They will acknowledge him as the tribal chief, and they will join him in like a little faction. And then what Roman will start doing, and maybe somewhat like he's trying to train them, but it'll come off as abuse. Like he's just abusing these two guys, but he's basically forcing them to do things that they wouldn't normally do, to do things that they're not used to doing like devilishly evil things. But once they start doing that and they experience success based on that, and if they win the tag team titles, which I would do like almost immediately, put the belts on them, they might begin to realize with each other, maybe Roman is onto something here. And all of this reluctance in the alliance with him turns mutual, and they turn into just this badass Samoan family group. And I would love that. To me, that's where it looks like the storyline is going more than anything else. And that's what I want to see. Because I think those two guys, I don't know where Heyman falls into all this, if he'll be there with all of them. But, it will be interesting to see, two very vicious, badass Usos backing up Roman Reigns. We've been talking about this for like 5 years. I remember talking about this when the Shield first broke up. Maybe there could be another Shield down the line. Even back when the Usos were still wearing the colorful face paint and stuff, they were having a lot of six-mans with Roman Reigns. And I remember us talking about it back then in 2015 or 16 or whenever it was. Like, man, what if you put a couple of riot gear vests on the Usos and changed up their look a little bit and have them backing up Roman Reigns? We actually now have a chance. We might even see that here in 2020 and 2021. So I think if I had to guess, if I'm a betting man with the storyline, that's where this is headed. But I'll tell you what, for the Hell in the Cell match tomorrow, it's making what I consider to be a very predictable outcome extremely intriguing. And that shit ain't easy to pull off. When you have a match where you know who's going to win, but you're still every bit as anxious to see it, that's hard to do, because it's all about the story and it's all about what's going to take place and how evil and how dark Roman Reigns is going to go in his attack of his own damn family. It's going to be interesting. So I like that segment. I thought it was well done. And Roman's a star, man. Roman is a star. I really liked the Law and Otis stuff. And I got to be honest, I said this earlier on when I was defending Le Dinner Debonair. I liked Law and Otis better. In terms of the two wacky segments we had across TV this week, I was entertained by Law and Otis mostly because of the cameos. You had JBL was the judge, and you had Ron Simmons as the bailiff wearing an APA shirt. Basically what they did here was wrestler's court, is what it felt like, because they had, I think Tucker was there, Teddy Long, Asuka made an appearance. She even said holla, holla, holla to Teddy Long, which I laughed my ass off. And, it's basically Miz and Morrison and their lawyer, and they're suing Otis for Money in the Bank contract negligence and unsafe working environment and shit like that. So anyway, they all say their piece. Otis is representing himself. So when he's stating his case, I believe he's asked, like, why do you think that you deserve the Money in the Bank contract? And he's like, because I won the match. I won the match that the briefcase was on the line in. That's why I deserve it. And then the lawyer looks at Miz and goes, that's a good argument. And then he fires her right there on the spot. That was hilarious. We had, like I said, we had Tucker pleading Otis's case as well. And again, I got to shit on the draft while we're in the middle of this, because Miz and Morrison are Raw guys, and here they are in a SmackDown segment. So just another example. It's example 17,563 of why the draft means dick. In the end, you had, this was a 2-segment deal, by the way. I think they did one earlier in the show and then one later. JBL is about to render his verdict, and he's about to side with Otis because, he's like, in terms of creating an unsafe working environment, that's pretty much his job description. In terms of Money in the Bank negligence, it's written right there in the contract, black and white, since day one in 2005, that the winner has a year to cash it in. It's not even been close to a year. It's only been a few months. So he's not being negligent. So I'm going to have no choice but to side with, and then Miz interrupts him, and he goes, Judge, Your Honor, I forgot. I have one more piece of evidence that I forgot to submit to you. It's right here, and he's got a black briefcase, and he hands it to JBL, and he opens it, and you just hear like ka-ching in the background. So obviously it's a briefcase full of money. JBL closes it, and he goes, you know what? I've changed my mind. I'm actually siding with the plaintiffs, and I hereby order that a match is going to take place at Hell in the Cell. So this whole thing was done just to get to this, which he knew. It's going to be Otis, SmackDown guy versus Raw guy Miz. Winner gets the Money in the Bank briefcase. So that match is now on for tomorrow. And it brings up all these interesting possibilities. I think it's almost like, I can't figure out what they're going to do here. If they're actually going to move the briefcase to somebody else, or if they're just trying to keep the briefcase busy in a storyline, because really Otis, in my mind, isn't in any position to challenge, or the Miz for that matter, to successfully cash in, that is, on either of these champs right now, Drew McIntyre or Roman Reigns. Miz and Otis would be very odd choices to put the belt on right now based on who the champions are. If the champions were somebody else, then maybe. If the champion was Jinder Mahal or maybe even an AJ Styles or somebody else, maybe it could be somewhat more believable. But McIntyre is such a badass, and Roman, you're not damaging right now at all. He's going to go hard into WrestleMania. There's almost like no room for there to be any sort of a cash in. So I like that they're having fun with this. If they do move the belt, if they move the briefcase over to the Miz, again, where does he cash in? And the only thing that I thought of, I put something to this effect on Twitter last night, is that what if they got really nuts with the briefcase? Right now, you got Roman and Drew. They feel like champions that are just a little bit too strong to be coughing up a belt to one of these two Nimrods or whatever. So what if you go one better? Like, let's say Miz Miz wins. Miz beats Otis tomorrow. He's the new holder of the briefcase. And then he goes and successfully cashes it in on Finn Balor in NXT. Hear me out. What the fuck, good Mike? Are you smoking crack? Not right now, I'm not. But if you think about it, like, you could send the Miz, like, I feel like NXT is struggling a little bit. Don't feel like they've just kind of I guess leveled out, or sort of, it's now not a question in my mind every Wednesday which show I'm watching first. I'm watching Dynamite every time, and I'm catching up on NXT. They haven't given me a reason to want to tune into them first yet. They probably will this week. I'm really interested in Halloween Havoc. I just want to see what it's going to look like. So this week they might actually draw enough attention there, but overall it feels like they're just flattening out. It feels like they got a cursed NXT title right now with Karrion Kross getting launched and then having to drop it right away. Then they put the belt on Balor as a really good, solid interim champion, and then he gets hurt, and there's all this question. So what if you take the Miz and you have him show up in NXT and take advantage of a not 100% Finn Balor? Maybe he's in the ring cutting a promo. Doctors have cleared me, but I'm not going to wrestle for 2 more weeks. And then he makes the mistake of saying doctors have cleared him. Miz comes out, and he goes, I'm going to cash in right now, and bashes him in the face with a chair on his jaw or something and pins him, becomes the new champion. And then he can just do all his shit talking in NXT, and he can just be the Miz. Maybe even, I'm going way out on a limb here, but maybe even, and I'm saying Miz's run in NXT, by the way, will only be as long as Karrion Kross. Like, the minute he comes back, Miz is beaten in 5 seconds, Kross is your champion. But in that time, maybe Miz can not only add an entertainment value to NXT, like giving NXT the MJF factor that Dynamite has, maybe he can even have 2 or 3 TV matches that would be good enough in an NXT style match to maybe get some of these fans that we've all been so reluctant on the Miz for so many years to maybe appreciate him more from that type of a worker sense. I think a lot of fans have turned the corner on him in terms of his mic ability and his promo cutting, because he's very good at that. But some fans have still always kind of questioned, should he really be a world champion? Does he have what it takes? Is he really that good in the ring? No. But what if he's down there in NXT and he just has a couple of fucking on-fire matches and he just fucking hits a couple of home runs with some guys? That could do enough to completely reshape the fans' opinions of The Miz and what type of a worker he is. He could go to NXT, have a couple of matches on TV that were all good, then get killed by Karrion Kross, and then Kross is champion again, and then Miz comes back to the main roster, maybe like a new man. That has a negative 5,000% chance of happening. But what if? You could even make the same case for Otis. Can't figure out what to do right now. He's exactly the type of crazy bastard, kind of like an R-Truth, that would just show up in NXT with a briefcase. Ooh, how about if I cash in here? And they're like, yeah, sure, why not? Go for it. So maybe Otis can do it there. Maybe you get really nuts. Maybe prior to the match, you have Morrison attack The Miz, replace The Miz in the match with Otis, then he wins the briefcase, then he goes to NXT and cashes in the title. NXT champion Morrison down there having a couple of great matches with random dudes, I'd be into that too. So maybe they could get a little funky here, but if they try to keep the briefcase on one of the two main brands, Raw or SmackDown, you still got plenty of time. To me, it's only October. You don't have to really start worrying until the end of the year. Okay, when the hell are we going to cash this thing in? So you've got some more time here to keep it on Otis if you want. I'm also wondering too if Otis is going to somehow find himself on Raw after this. He's the lone wolf kind of stuck still on SmackDown. Miz, Morrison, Tucker, and Mandy all on Raw. So what if the briefcase somehow ties into him showing up on Raw somehow? I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do tomorrow. To me, I could see them logically moving the briefcase off of Otis onto somebody else, but to put it on The Miz, a guy who's lost a countless amount of tag team matches on TV lately, is he even close to a credible person? The Miz is not going to cash in on Roman or Drew any more than Otis is. So it's not even like they're moving the briefcase to like a larger star, a more capable star. It's not like Roman isn't champion and he's just come back and he's taken on Otis for the briefcase. Then yes, of course, you're going to move the briefcase to Roman. But that's not what's happening here. It's Miz and Otis. And I want to hear your ideas for who wins tomorrow and what the future of the briefcase is and who cashes it in. And is it a successful cash-in? Right now, I'm gonna think that it's not a successful cash-in, which is why I think you could at least consider adding NXT into this mix, because Balor is still very up in the air. We don't know what's going on with him. If it turns out that he is injured and cannot defend the title, I like the idea of vacating the title and have Balor and Kross battling for it when they're both healthy. But if they want to have the belt on somebody else in the interim, that person's going to look like a paper champion. That person's going to look like a weak champion. So what better person to put it on than a douchebag like The Miz, who will be a paper champion, who will be a transitional champion, but in his head, he will think he's the best wrestler in the fucking WWE. That could be entertaining, which is why I took it down that road. But that's unlikely, but I still think maybe it's something worth thinking about if WWE really wants to have some fun with the briefcase, because otherwise I feel like that briefcase is going to be in limbo until the title situations on the Raw or SmackDown brand are a little bit more unstable or less stable than they are now. Because right now, I don't see those belts going anywhere off of Roman and Drew, at least for the moment. Luigi Da Raw, thank you for the $2 or $3, excuse me. What did SmackDown get for all those trades? I know, man. It's hard to keep up with all those trades, too. I don't know, man. The draft is such a mess. The brand split means nothing. Hey, Michael, good to see you back, and thanks for the 5. Did you see Cross's comeback workout training videos on YouTube? No, I haven't, but I'll check those out. Also, Cross has WrestleMania main event written all over him. He does. I really hate that he got derailed after he won the title and got injured like that, but I think there's time and there's the ability for him, the Cross and Scarlett presentation, to keep rolling once he gets healthy again, and he'll get the belt back from Balor at some point. But now Balor is up in the air and he's in question. And we're just hoping that they don't have to do something else with that title. But I like the idea. I can't remember who brought it up last week, but it was one of you guys in the chat when I was saying, what do you do if Balor can't compete? Do you strip the title again? Do you now strip your champion to put it on a transitional champion, then strip the transitional champion? That's not a good look. So I like the idea of just vacating it, Balor versus Cross when they're both healthy, winner, and plan it for a takeover, and winner's the new champ. That's really the best thing you can do here, unless you want to get nuts and send Otis or The Miz down there to win a title. I'd like to see it just because I like crazy shit, you know what I mean? We got to mention Shorty G. Oh, you know what? Before we mention Shorty G, let me knock out Alex and Stone Cold. Alex, you think you've missed most of the stream? Hope all is good with you. Yeah, you've only missed how long have you missed? About an hour and a half. we've been streaming here. So, yeah, we talked about AEW and NXT first, and we're just getting into SmackDown now. And here in a minute, I'm going to predict Hell in the Cell, and then I'm out of here. I got 40 minutes left before I got to bounce. So we'll have more than enough time to get all this in. And thank you, Stone Cold, for the $5 as well. That's why Orton is my sleeper pick. Otis cashes in on Orton. Holy crap. That is something to think about. That's something I didn't even think about at all, is they could have a cash-in tomorrow. They could have a cash-in tomorrow. Win, lose, or draw for anybody. You know, the Miz... Ooh. Who did the Miz beat for his first ever WWE title? I could see that. Orton somehow winning in a fluke. He's covered in blood. He's got a broken arm. His head's severed. He's got a foot dangling off. And he's just a mess. He's just hobbling around. And then out comes the Miz. Skull-crushing finale. Wins the title. Maybe. I'd be into that. And you've got Otis cashing in, but I immediately thought of the Miz's title win. Remember Angry Miz Girl? How mad she gets? Remember I said, I think last week, I said that'd be a great idea for a horror movie. Angry Miz Girl's now an adult. She's had 10 years to plan her revenge against Randy Orton. And she slowly and methodically stalks, kidnaps, and tortures all of Randy Orton's close friends and family, saving him for last, and then kills him. All in the name of the Miz. That'd be great stuff. Yeah, I don't know. That could definitely happen. I could see some sort of a cash-in tomorrow. I still think the Usos are going to fall in line with Roman, but they could do something there where the two of them just beat him down, leave him laying. I just don't want to see Roman lose the title, but considering we have 2 title matches inside of a cell, in most cases, win, lose, or draw, you're hurting after that match. So they're ripe. Those champions are ripe for a briefcase winner to come in and cash in. So yeah, we'll see. We could potentially see that. Yeah, we could potentially see that. I still think that if you have a situation like that, and this is just what I always say, it doesn't necessarily have to be this way, this is what I feel. If you're going to do a scenario like that, where it's Orton winning the title, and then, and that would be kind of poetic justice too, because Orton has done at least one cash-in where he's taken advantage of one of Daniel Bryan, right, and coming in and beating him for the title. So I like it when it happens to somebody else, or I like it when it happens back to them. So somebody coming in and taking advantage of Orton would be really good. The problem with that is, if you do a scenario like that, that's got to be your show closing thing, in my mind. Like, I feel that's going to be such a shock to see the Miz win the title. That should be your cliffhanger, especially with Raw tomorrow night, or with Raw the next night after the pay-per-view. You have Miz win the title and the show goes off the air. You're like, holy shit, I got to turn into Raw tomorrow night to see this asshole with the title. How the hell did he come out of this pay-per-view with the title? That's got to be a main event thing, and I don't know if Drew McIntyre is ever going to main event a pay-per-view this year. But if he does, it should be when he loses. I think if McIntyre and Orton are not the main event, it is 100% a McIntyre victory in my mind. I'm not saying it has to be that way. Just to me, it feels like I'm not having a title change that monumental on the undercard of anything. And I think there also needs to be a case to be made for Bayley and Sasha Banks to be the main event here as well, since you could make an argument that both title match main events are kind of predictable, where honestly, I think kind of maybe the women's matches too. But we're not ready for predictions yet, almost. Got to talk about Shorty G first. Shorty G he had 2 promos on the show, one before, one after the match. He got murdered by Lars Sullivan, who I don't know if you heard, but Lars Sullivan is the Freak. That's what WWE is calling him. You probably haven't heard that because WWE hardly ever mentions it. But in case you were wondering what his nickname was, it is the Freak. He beats the hell out of Chad Gable. Gable is backstage in the trainer's room after. Adam Pearce is with him, and he's pissed, and he says that Shorty G is dead. He's gotten nowhere with Shorty G, and he quits being Shorty G. And then he goes on to start touting his resume. He's an Olympic wrestler. He's a national champion. He's a state champion. All these great things that he does. He goes, I have a list of accomplishments that has to be seen to be believed. And then he goes kind of like this. He goes, it's like this. It's big. And it immediately made me think of Sean Stasiak in Meat. I mean, are they going to do some sort of a gimmick where he's just got some huge Batista dick? I don't know what the hell the point of this was. But he is quitting Shorty G. He's back to being Chad Gable, which He should have never stopped being Chad Gable. A lot of people on social media are like, all right, he should quit Shorty G. Good job, WWE. I'm like, good job, WWE. They should have never made him Shorty G to begin with. How in the world did they think that Shorty G would get over? Like, and unfortunately here, with him saying, I'm done with Shorty G, I'm going back to Chad Gable, to me, that also means nothing. I hate to say that. Chad Gable, I'm a huge fan of his. I think he could be and should be pushed as a Kurt Angle level of athlete. For whatever reason, he's not. He's been Shorty G. He's been doing a whole bunch of dumb shit ever since Jason Jordan got injured, and they split the team up. And ever since then, he's pretty much been a non-factor, and he's good. This guy is not a... I feel like WWE treats him like Justin Gabriel or the other guy that looks like Justin Gabriel, who are both really, really good athletes and should have been treated better in WWE. But I think he's different than them. And I just don't think they view him in that sort of a light. And, just based on the size and things like that. And I don't think they really realize the potential that's in there. And now that he's going to be back to being Chad Gable, fine. But I don't think it's going to change anything for him. And the fact that he was doing all this makes me think they're going to put him into another stupid gimmick. And he's going to go out there and just start talking about how big everything is. Kind of like how Austin Aries always talked about his package. And now he's got a big package and all of that. So I'm kind of worried they're going to do that with him next, which is going to be just equally as stupid as Shorty G. I don't know, but it's an absolute crime that Gable has never worn any singles gold in the company. Ridiculous. So we'll see. And the other segment that I wanted to talk about on last night's SmackDown was the Bayley and Sasha Banks segment. Now, Bayley has been refusing to sign the contract. They're supposed to do the contract signing last week. She didn't sign it. She left. This week, Sasha Banks is not playing any fucking games. Bayley is in the ring talking shit. Sasha comes out, and she's pissed, and she immediately just starts attacking Bayley. I think Bayley tries to hit her with a chair or something. Sasha ducks, gets control of the chair, takes over on Bayley, starts beating her up, and then kind of places her head into the chair and kind of wrenches back on it and basically forces Bayley to sign the contract, which I really like. She's like, sign this fucking contract, bitch. And she did it, and she signed the contract. I'm not sure if that's illegal. I don't know if you can be forced physically into signing something, but she finally did. And Bayley apparently is still pissed, and she's calling tomorrow's match false advertising. So it'll be interesting tomorrow to see if she gets into this cage kicking and screaming. From what I can tell in the promos and stuff, it seems like Bayley is only resistant to signing the contract because she doesn't want to be told what to do. You don't tell me what to do. So that's why she's not signing the contract, which is fucking stupid. She needs to get in there and defend her title. And that match now is officially official for tomorrow. And I think, based on the card here, one can make an argument that should main event. That is a long, long, long running storyline with Bayley and Sasha that I think should deserve to be the focus of the pay-per-view. So I'm going to vote yes on them. I'm going to vote yes for them to main event based on, how long it's been to get to this point between them. But, we'll see. If Drew and Orton main event, look for something crazy to happen. If Drew and Orton main event, that's where I think you could have the potential cash in, depending on who wins between Otis and The Miz. If Roman and Jay main event, I don't think we're going to get a cash in. We might get an unsuccessful one. That could happen. Like, what if Roman has his match with Jay, he forces him to quit, but it was a brutal match. Jimmy gets involved, and Roman is, he's a little worse for the wear, but he got the job done. Jay quit. They're both kind of injured. And then Otis, who beats Miz earlier in the night, he runs out there to cash in. And remember when Roman says, if you don't fall in line, you're going to be booted from the family. Maybe they don't wait to decide if they're going to fall in line. They fall in line right there. And both Usos attack Otis, put him down after the bell rings, of course. And they get to him. Now that I think about it, our Money in the Bank matches, they're not no disqualification matches, are they? They're always regular matches. We've never seen a DQ in a Money in the Bank contract match. That would suck if we saw one, but now might be a good time to pull one out. But I think if they did it where like Otis came out, then the Usos can do something to help Roman beat him. And then by the end of the match, the Usos go through all of their stuff with Roman. He makes him say, I quit. And then they wind up aligning with him as the show goes off the air, which would be weird, but it could be something to do. But I think any sort of cash-in thing has got to happen and can only happen if the title match is the main event. So we'll see. But let's get into the Hell in a Cell predictions. Like I said, I feel bad. I'm only predicting 5 matches here. I'm sure they're going to add a kickoff match. Well, what do we have going on right now in storyline? We're going to get a tag team match, maybe a New Day taking on somebody, whoever the fuck. Street Profits could have a tag team match. Wouldn't be surprised. We might see Asuka have some sort of a match, although I don't think so. She beat Lana last week. Could be a Hurt Business thing, maybe a Retribution fucking match or something. I don't know. I would not really expect any sort of Retribution interference here either. I suppose we could see it in Drew and Orton, but I don't think we will. We'll see. Anyway, in terms of the matches, I guess I'm going to start at the bottom. Jeff Hardy and Elias, which was just made last week. Now, this one's kind of interesting because Elias is just returning. Elias just had that kick-ass rock concert on Monday night. He just came back. But unfortunately, as much as I like Elias, I don't see him being any different than what he was before. He's entertaining. He's going to do a lot of things on TV every week. He'll have a segment every week where he'll be playing the guitar and having a segment with somebody and singing and all of that. But in terms of his matches, you know, Jeff Hardy just got squashed and put down pretty hard recently on TV by Lars Sullivan. I think he bounces back with a win here, and I'm going to predict Jeff Hardy to beat Elias, which sounds weird, but that's what I'm going to predict. And I think Elias, in a very short amount of time, will be right back to being the Elias he was, which sucks. I like Elias. We've got Otis and The Miz for the Money in the Bank contract. We have talked a lot about that. This is the only one that I don't have. I have my winners written down for every match. I don't have a winner written down here for this. I don't know if you guys liked all my Miz ideas for him to cash in. I really like the idea of him potentially cashing in on Randy Orton. That would be a big deal. But again, that's a heel and a heel type of thing, so I don't know. Oh, thank you for that, Michael. Cena's cash-in was a DQ loss. While Cena won by DQ, but no title win, of course. Oh, no shit. Okay. So, yeah, it's rare. We don't see that very often, or countouts. I barely remember that. But, yeah, now I remember it now that you say that. Boy, it's a good thing that was Cena, you know, because everybody hated Cena or whatever. But if that was anybody else other than Cena, people have been bitching about the DQ. But with Cena, I think anything back then, anything to keep the title off of him, made fans happy. So in terms of Otis and The Miz, you know, like I said when this whole thing first started, I don't think they would put this in motion if they didn't plan on moving the briefcase. Like, why go through all this? It could just be a way, though, also to have the briefcase, you know, tread some water, be a focal part of a storyline, but not really like tying up the briefcase in litigation and matches before it's really cashed in. But they are setting up for a cash-in here tomorrow. It feels like they could if they wanted to. So I'm going to reluctantly pick The Miz to win the briefcase. And I think also something that might come out of this, I don't know how they'll do it, is I kind of feel like they'll get Otis to Raw. I feel like he's got to be there. He's completely directionless on SmackDown by himself. Where over on Raw, he's got a whole bunch of people he's been teaming with. He's got his girlfriend there and people he's feuding with. And if Miz takes the briefcase off of him, he can chase the briefcase around over on Raw for a while too, while the Miz dangles it in front of his face. Or, you know, maybe Otis, you know, maybe Miz wins the briefcase and they're about to give Otis a rematch. And he goes, forget it. I don't want a rematch. Just put me on Raw. Forget about the briefcase. Just put me on Raw so I can be with my peach. Maybe they do something like that. I don't know if Otis will kind of forego his pursuit of the briefcase in order just to be on Raw or something. But I feel like something is just happening. Word is Vince likes Otis too, so I suppose you could do Morrison screwing up and costing the Miz the match by accident. You do a Miz and Morrison feud coming out of this. But again, that keeps the briefcase on Otis, and what the hell do you do with that? I think the briefcase on Miz gives you more options. So I think I'm going to go with that. But that's a shame, you know. I think if you're going to put the briefcase on somebody, they should keep it. And the only person to really lose the briefcase so far is Kennedy, right? Is he the only one? I feel like he is. So that would be sad for Otis. So that's my one pick that I'm not certain of. I'm picking The Miz just because I have to leave in 30 minutes and I don't have time to sit there and think about this very much. But I'm definitely not confident. If I was giving myself confidence points, I'd be giving myself none because I just don't know. Drew McIntyre defending the WWE title against Randy Orton in the third and likely final match between these two. I think the Hell in the Cell is the perfect match to blow this issue off because it has been so brutal, and they have been involved in a lot of violent segments on TV, putting each other in hospitals, cracking each other's jaws, cracking each other's skulls. Randy Orton's beat up a ton of legends on his path here. They all got revenge in him in the ambulance match. These matches, the two that they've had so far, were the backslide at SummerSlam and then the victory in the ambulance match, haven't really been that definitive. Drew caught him with a quick pin in one, and then had the help from 4 other guys. It was a 5-1 handicap match in the ambulance match. Drew needs definitive closing to this storyline, and I've drawn parallels between Orton and Drew to Triple H and Batista back in the day. Right after Triple H lost the title or went into his program with Batista, didn't Batista beat him at 3 straight pay-per-views in a row? WrestleMania, and then another one, and then he had the Hell in a Cell to climax it, right? I feel like that's what they'll do with Drew here. It's been a great year for him. You know, he put down Brock. He's beaten everybody he's gotten in the ring with. Now 3 big pay-per-view wins in a row against a Hall of Famer, legend like Randy Orton. I think does nothing but good things for Drew. So I'm picking Drew to win. But like I said, if it turns out that this match is the main event, that's where you look for the cash in. I think if this is match 3 on the card, then we're not going to get any sort of cash in or any sort of swerve here. I think it's just going to be Drew McIntyre beating him. So it depends. But they could have some fun. They could have The Miz come in there, beat Drew, or they could have The Miz come in, beat Orton, or they could have Otis come in and do something. I just don't know. But I'm picking Drew McIntyre to retain the title, and then, you know, I think he'll head into 2021 as champion. That's what I'd do with him anyway. Roman Reigns against Jey Uso. Roman defending the Universal title against his cousin. This is an I Quit match and also a Hell in a Cell match, so this is a double stipulation type of thing. There's really a third stipulation too, because Roman says that if they don't fall in line after he makes Jey say I quit, then they are out of the family. So that's that really adds a lot. Like I said, we've talked about this twice already in this podcast. I'm picking Roman Reigns, obviously. They're not, I mean, putting the belt on Jey Uso would be fun if it was anybody else champion right now other than Roman. You know, Roman is back. He's impressive. He finally has a character and a direction and a personality that the fans can get behind and like, even though he's a heel. He is the best version of Roman Reigns he's ever been. And in the short amount of time since his return in August, all the way up here until the end of October, it has been the most entertaining I've ever found Roman in my life. And I'm loving this character, and I don't want them to let up. I want him to be dominant, vicious, animal, out for blood in every match, and be champion heading into WrestleMania, dropping the belt, either working with The Rock or dropping the title to Big E. To me, those are the two, I guess those are the two acceptable outcomes and pathways for Roman, in my mind, for WrestleMania, is one of those two things. If he works with The Rock, it doesn't necessarily have to be for the title. He could drop the title prior to that. But if it is, then he's got to beat The Rock and retain. So he's either dropping it to someone like Big E or he's retaining it over The Rock at WrestleMania. That's my pick there. But in terms of the match and the winner of the match, Roman 100%. What they do with it, how they structure it, what the story is, getting Jey to say I quit and all that stuff, that's where the fun is going to be. Just like Moxley and Eddie Kingston, same thing. We know Mox is probably going to win, but it's going to be fun to watch how he does. And I think with Roman Reigns, it's the exact same thing. So Roman retains over Jey Uso. That leaves us with what could be the main event. Maybe not. Don't know. Bayley defending her SmackDown Women's title for Sasha Banks. Bayley just crossed over the year-long mark for her. And, you know, Bayley, no shit, because I know you're listening. You love us here. She listens every week. I just want to tell you, tomorrow, win, lose, or draw, you've had a fantastic year. Just a terrific year. I've been so entertained by her and her title run this past year and how well she adjusted and adapted to being a heel with the Aunt Janet hairdo and everything that she's got going on. She's hilarious. She's loud. She's obnoxious. She's entertaining. And she showed me a side of her that I didn't think she had. And when she was ponytail, inflatable doll Bayley going out there and hugging and kissing the babies, she has made a magnificent transition. She's had a hell of a run. And win, lose, or draw, Bayley, thank you for a great year. You were great. But I got to pick her to drop the title here. That's what it all points to. You know, she's held it a year. If you don't take it off of her here, when do you? And Sasha is the one to do it based on their story, based on their history, based on everything that's going on here. I think Sasha needs to beat Bayley for the title. If she does, it'll be interesting to see if Sasha can finally get over that hump and successfully defend the title in her first title defense after this. But to me, all signs are pointing to Sasha, and based on my predictions so far, that's the only title I got changing hands on this thing. Unless they add an IC or a US title or any sets of tag team titles here randomly that could change hands, I think Drew and Roman are going to retain, which means you need to have some sort of a big title change somewhere. And Sasha Banks winning the title in the main event of Hell in the Cell, I think could be a great moment, and really needs to be what they do. They could also, some people have mentioned this, have Bayley win here and then do something to where Sasha, the only way she can get another title shot is if she wins the Royal Rumble, and then you do Bayley and Sasha again at WrestleMania. But to me, that's too far off. This thing's already been going on for 2 years. You could do that. It would be great. The WrestleMania stage would be a much bigger moment for these two women to, finally have their moment. But this is a Cell match. Cells should be blow-offs. Cells should end feuds, not begin them. And I think Sasha should win here and win the title. I think she'd look great with the blue belt. You can get maybe a rematch or two with Bayley out of the way, and then Sasha can actually be on a run with the title. And then maybe you can still do a rematch at WrestleMania with Bayley winning the belt back or something. I don't know. But poor Sasha, every time she's won a belt, she's dropped it in her first defense. This is the time for her to win it and keep it for a while. So I'm picking her to win here. I think that's the right move. That's the right thing to do. And it will, either way, it'll make Bayley entertaining, because if she wins, imagine how obnoxious she will be bragging about that. She will be ridiculous. And even losing, she's going to be a crazy, sore loser, psychotic freak in the loss. So I think either way here, Bayley's going to be fun after the match. So that's who I got. Just to recap, Jeff Hardy over Elias. I got The Miz picking up the Money in the Bank contract, maybe, but that's who I'm picking. I've got Drew retaining over Randy Orton, Roman Reigns retaining over Jey Uso, and Sasha Banks retaining over Bayley. Sasha Banks winning the SmackDown Women's title from Bayley. You got some wild cards here. Could have some extra matches thrown in. We'll get a kickoff match, and you got to wonder about the status of that Money in the Bank contract once that match is over, because that will be an undercard match. That should come before, if WWE's smart, that match will come before both cage matches. That way you can at least have that in your mind of a potential possibility of a cash in there in either one of them, depending on Otis or Miz winning. So I'd keep your eye on that, if we'll get a cash in or not. It would be weird to get a cash in tomorrow, but I suppose it could happen. We'll see. Yep. Hardy, Miz, Drew, Roman, Sasha. That's who I got for tomorrow. Let me cruise back over here. You guys do me a favor and smash that thumbs up button for me, since we are low on the thumbs up. And I'll knock out any super chats that I have. Already got Michael. Okay, good. We're good. Oh, Vontae, what's up, man? You see Rock beating Roman first, then vice versa, like he did with Cena. I would see that scenario if this was like 3 years ago or 4. If this was old Roman, kind of like the way, then I would do it that way. But with this Roman, with this like vicious Roman, I don't do that at all. I bring Rock in to put him over, and put him over. That's it. Like one off, one and done. Torch is passed. Here you go. Rock can have some good moments over Roman in the build. Hit him with some rock bottoms and put him down on the mic and insult him and get the fans all riled up and happy. But when it comes to the match, I think it needs to be Roman beating down The Rock definitively. Like I said, if this was 2017 and things were different or whatever, then yeah, maybe I'd do it that way. But not with the way things are now. I would just do Roman all the way in that. Sasha has never been SmackDown Women's Champion. I guess I knew that. I just forgot. Oh, wow. All her titles have been Raw, huh? Yeah, Brandy, 3 Hell in the Cells in one night. I don't know what Mr. Kennedy's up to. I just talked about him in my Bound for Glory 2010 review last week. He was in the main event there. I don't remember seeing him on TV many years after that. I have no idea what he's up to. I have no idea. Anywho, I have got to get out of here. I got to head to work, so I appreciate you guys hanging out this afternoon. We had a fun 2 hours here. Let me know all of your predictions for tomorrow's Hell in the Cell pay-per-view. What do you think is going to happen? Is there going to be any sort of an extra swerve with the contract, or things are going to be pretty much black and white here? Give me your opinions on Le Dinner Debonair. Give me your opinions on Full Gear, Halloween Havoc, all that stuff that we talked about here tonight. And tomorrow, immediately following Hell in the Cell, be sure to join me for a live review. We'll be up right after the show to talk about it. And during the show, shoot me a follow over on Twitter at GoodMikeWork. I will be live tweeting my thoughts and my opinions throughout the show. I'll be kicking back, having some cold ones, watching Hell in the Cell. And after it's over, we'll be up here to talk about it and have a good time. So you guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday night. Thank you again for hanging out today, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Y'all be good. Peace.